This boy met Truck-kun while playing on his phone. When he woke up from the coma, he was in a different place. People called him Warrior Kim, the most basic character in the game. Now he is trapped in a world ruled by awakened factions, using the weakest character. But he has a system that can switch attributes infinitely. A nurse suddenly enters the room and asks if Kim Warrior has finally woken up. She says she'll call a doctor, and the young man wonders why she's calling him that. That was Kim Warrior, a 22-year-old man who was taken to the hospital for dislocated and bruised limbs from an accident. Junsu sees that it really says Kim Warrior and wonders what this is all about. It felt like he was being punished for using his Kim Warriors to level up the celestial demon, but suddenly he became a Kim himself. He suddenly touches his foot to the floor and feels extreme pain in his body. The young man lets out a terrifying scream. The nurse approaches, asking Kim Warrior not to move, but Junsu just complains that it hurts too much. The doctor explains that he was hit by a truck and passed out, and now he needs to run some tests. He needs an MRI and a magic X-ray. Junsu repeats the words. He wants to know what they were talking about with Kim Warrior and magic. Kim finds himself at the hospital reception. A woman calculates that with the emergency room, hospitalization, magic X-ray, MRI, and other tests, the total cost would be 22 million won. Kim Junsu wonders why he has to pay 22 million when he was only there for 4 days. But the woman tells him he has no insurance, so he has to pay for everything. This just irritates him, as he says every Korean has government health coverage. The girl asks what national government is because he doesn't have Legion coverage or Magic Tower insurance. The young man repeats her words, asking what she's talking about, but he remembers those names, trying to recall where he's seen them before. There was the Legion, Mega Corporations, the Divine Tower, and the Divine Order. These were the 4 dominant factions of Seoul, and the groups from the game Arcane. In a world where God abandoned humanity, arcane science developed greatly. The polluted land was filled with monsters, and humans modified their bodies to survive. The young man thinks this sucks. To put it simply, it was a hard world to live in, and he had been thrown right into it. He was happily heading home after getting the celestial demon, but now he's become a tutorial character from the game. Maybe this is divine judgment for the warriors. The Kim Warrior's room was smaller than the students, and he wondered why he was so poor. Since his body was all broken and he had no money, he wondered what to do. Because if this really is Arcane Soul, then events like nuclear wars and dimensional rifts, and the resurrection of the old gods would soon happen, turning this place into a hell. He didn't know how he ended up here, but if he just stood still, he would surely end up losing his life. But he notices something different, questioning if his reasoning is correct. Kim points his pen, preparing to strike his own hand. He thinks he needs to confirm this before it's too late. He stabs his own hand with the pen, causing blood to suddenly gush out, but the wound emits a greenish glow and closes right after. Junsu thinks he already knew that would work. He had acquired the wound regeneration trait, and that was the reason he had leveled up countless Kim Warriors. He's a tutorial character, the only one with no base skill. However, he can unlock and change his traits, making him more versatile than other characters. For a strategist like him, that was better than rare ones. In other words, now that he is the Kim Warrior, he can get any trait he wants, regenerating all the wounds on his body. Arcane Soul. In this world, you lose your life if you're poor or weak. If he were lucky, he would run away. But he's not going to run, nor is he going to lose his life. He would survive, because he has the knowledge of 10,000 hours in Arcane Soul as a free-to-play player, reaching the overall rank 9. Junsu prepares for an adventure, in the body of a Kim Warrior. So, he goes to a place called the Player Personnel Office. A bearded man asks if this is Kim Warrior's first time in a player character office. The young man confirms and says he plans to get into the mana purification business. He reflects that he needs money after this bad draw. All he got was a Kim Warrior, and this was the only way to make money. The man puts his foot on the table and says it might be called mana purification, but asks if he really knows what the dungeons are like. This was the director of player personnel, Choi Seonsu. Junsu says he does, but the director questions if he's sure, since there's nothing on his resume about ever being in a dungeon. Kim thinks to himself that he knew how shitty this job was, because there was contaminated mana, the reason monsters had taken over Arcane Soul. Dungeon cleaning is the act of clearing out the filth that emits high levels of contaminated mana. High levels of exposure to this mana can take someone's life, as the young man agonizes being consumed by mana, and then turning into a demon, because it can result in a mutation, making the job even more dangerous. Seonsu says that as soon as he has more people, he'll call him for a team, and the young man thanks him. But the director wants to know if he's sure. He's seen many like Kim go in looking for money and come back completely empty. However, the young man tells the boss to relax, because he's going to be better than him, leaving the director surprised. But working hard was Kim Warrior's specialty, with 10,000 hours of gameplay time. The work leader, Servo, asks why a newbie wants to join his team, but Kim says he doesn't know. He just came to work, and they sent him to this team. Servo grabs him by the shirt, asking if he looks like a liar and where the determination in his eyes is, because he'd better not ask for salvation after suffering a mutation. If he sees any sign of a mutant in him, he'll take his life on the spot. Kim says he'll keep that in mind, reflecting that the guy was just trying to scare a rookie. It's always the same as his reality. He wonders why an R-rank character is here since this is their pre-awakening appearance, when they were still normal. Another man approaches, telling Servo not to be so hard on the new guy. They're already short-staffed, and this man has 5 years of experience cleaning dungeons. Servo questions if he looks like he'd be any help, finding it strange he hasn't mutated yet. But he walks away, saying they have exactly 4 days to clean this contaminated place. Junsu reflects that he was even more annoying here than in the game. However, the long-haired man touches his shoulder and tells him not to worry. Servo can be a bit harsh sometimes, but he's a pretty nice guy. Kim finally admits he understands. They arrive at a gate covered in goo. They say it's disgusting and they'll never get used to it. Servo yells that he's opening the doors and tells everyone to get ready. He presses the access button. They enter the contaminated mana environment. The leader shouts for everyone to get in position. The remnants of contaminated mana crawl through the basement. Those are low-grade monsters, contaminated slimes. Junsu reflects that contaminated slimes are the basis of mana purification and monster processes. Although they are weak in combat, they're hard to deal with because even when hit with a shovel, the slime splits in two and flies off. They don't lose their life unless you hit their mana core. The group members warn each other to find the mana core, or they'll get contaminated if this continues. But Kim quickly rushes toward one of the slimes, yelling for his colleague to back off a bit. He prepares to attack with the shovel, saying he won't be responsible for the damages. He faces the contaminated slime's blade, meeting a golden piece. The slime begins to dissolve, and the man screams. Kim comments with a smile that this is perfect. He's just getting warmed up now. He pushes off the ground, advancing. The warrior slices through all the contaminated slimes in his path, splitting them and finding their mana cores. He continues this process until none are left. One of the group members wonders what's going on as he's defeating the slimes in a single blow. He wants to know how that's possible as Kim approaches the giant slime. Kim thinks something like this is very possible. 2 days before this happened, he was lying on the ground wondering where he was. There had to be something around here, but he notices something strange in front of him. He picks up the coin, saying he found it. He acquires the treasure hunter trait. Kim is happy and says this was the most important trait for the warrior Kim. He celebrates finding 501, while people in the square think he's strange. Before the dungeon, Kim learned important things and got new traits. He throws up into a trash can, screaming as he purges all the impurities inside, but he obtains the contamination resistance trait. Kim comments that this one was tough, but getting traits here was the same as in the game. You just had to meet the conditions. He admires all the traits he earned through hard work. You could have a total of 6 traits and could swap them whenever you wanted. The treasure hunter skill allows you to find opponents' weak spots, and thanks to this trait, he can find the mana core, dissolving the giant contaminated slime. A skull forms as it dissolves. Servo yells for everyone to be careful not to get hit. Kim was covered in contaminated filth. He says all his effort was worth it. The warrior Kim's ability was incredible, giving him resistance to contaminated mana. A bus drives through the city. Kim reflects that even with the help of traits, working all day is exhausting. Hedgehog appears and comments that thanks to the warrior, everyone is leaving early. Just seeing that was incredible. He asks if he's waiting for his awakening like Servo. Kim says he knew how to use a shovel because he served in the army. His colleague comments that he's truly amazing. Kim reflects that this guy's mutation symptoms are getting worse. It looked like he had been exposed to a lot of contaminated mana. He suggests he rest tomorrow since he doesn't look well, but Hedgehog replies that he'd rather become a mutant than be in debt. Kim thinks that makes sense, as there aren't many reasons for people to accept this kind of job. He sticks his shovel into the ground. 4 days later, Kim sighs. It was over, but it seemed like everyone was exhausted from this job. Someone suddenly vomits on the ground. Hedgehog kneels, clutching his head. Kim just thinks to himself that he told him not to push his limits. But Servo approaches, commenting that he seems ready for the next one, but that's just because he's too new. He never thought he'd fulfill his contract, congratulating him on a job well done. Kim jokes that he only managed thanks to him, while thinking that it was actually thanks to the traits he got as a cleaner, so the job will be too easy. It seemed like he was used to it too, wondering if he was really an R rank, as Servo mutters about being tired, but they hear a scream and Kim turns around. Hedgehog starts to be consumed by contaminated energy. His friends ask if he's okay because of the spikes. Servo rushes forward, asking what that is. Kim thinks it can't be. The team leader tells Hedgehog to hang on, that they're getting out of there, but he's already turned into a mutant, causing an explosion in the contaminated area. Kim thinks it's impossible. Hedgehog's body was already modified. He's become gigantic against the warrior because he turned into a mutant. Hedgehog was in his mutant form. He seemed to have lost all his sanity, and if they defeat him, everyone there will lose their lives. All the new traits he gained were for cleaning dungeons. They wouldn't help him at all. No matter how much he thought about what to do, the only answer he could find was that it was impossible. Hedgehog prepares to attack. He throws Kim far away, making him hit the ground on his back. Kim reflects that the power gap is too wide, and he could lose his life at this rate, but he obtains the resistance trait. Kim reflects that this is it. It's still too early to give up. He asks himself how he's going to survive this monster. First, he needs to erase some traits. Strength will prove useful now, and Mana Heart will help control mana, with resistance reducing all damage taken. Mana absorption allows him to absorb mana, and deep breathing grants greater regeneration. And finally, the last piece is corruption resistance. Kim finally prepares himself with the basics for combat. Hedgehog charges at him again. Kim imbues his shovel with green energy. The strength trait amplifies its power tenfold. The warrior launches Hedgehog into the air with his attack. It was good because it was working, and he knew he could do it. Hedgehog falls toward the wall, but suddenly curls into a ball. Kim is startled by this, but Hedgehog charges at him in a spin, using a rock to launch himself off the ground and preparing to hit Kim's head. The young man pleads, "For God's sake!" as he's struck by Hedgehog. The creature retreats, using its claw dug into the ground, gnashing its teeth at Kim. The young man leaps up from the ground, complaining that even with resistance activated, it still hurts a lot. But if he stops now, he'll lose his life. So he has no choice but to keep attacking. One of Hedgehog's spines bends and is launched toward Kim's face. He fires others at the warrior. Kim falls to the ground, injured, thinking, no, he just needs to hold on a little longer. He just wanted a little more. He aims to land a punch on Hedgehog, but blood flies back again. Kim was all wounded from the spines. Hedgehog gets even more enraged, launching a spine that splits his fingers apart. The young man screams, fallen on the ground, saying that, as expected, he can't beat the warrior Kim. Hedgehog strikes the ground once more. Playing Arcane Souls, Junsu was surrounded in the game. He tells everyone to come at him because he'd defeat them all with just the warrior Kim. Back when he was playing the game, everything was easy. It only took a single click to hunt monsters, and he never considered how the character would feel. He'd simply put his characters through extreme situations under the guise of efficient training. But now he knew everything. It took so much suffering just to get one mediocre trait. He lands a blow on Hedgehog, sending him flying with the hit. There was no better way, with the mutant muscle trait activated, allowing him to win without paying any price. The Hedgehog falls on its back. Kim thinks the reason he attacked so recklessly was to get the mutant muscle trait, which is obtainable only by pushing past the limits of Mana Heart and activated strength. And it was all for this moment. Kim uses his mutant arm to block the Hedgehog's strike. He says he doesn't feel pain anymore and dares the Hedgehog to hit him back, but the creature grows spikes on its fist and strikes Kim's stomach with it. The young man wonders if the Hedgehog still wasn't using its full strength. Now, with his stomach completely corrupted, it begins to form something strange. Kim gains the mutant body trait, growing giant as well. He thanks it because he's become stronger thanks to it. The Hedgehog charges toward the young man. Their strength collides as they are now on the same level. Servo watches from a distance, wondering what's happening. It's so loud. He sees Kim and the Hedgehog trading blows, evenly matched. He is surprised by the warrior Kim's presence, wondering if he's a superhuman or something, to fight a mutant on equal terms. Kim is thrown back, and so is the Hedgehog. Both of them fall onto their backs. The warrior thinks it's not that easy. His size might match the monster's now, but at this rate he'll be at a disadvantage. But the creature gets up and roars. Kim thinks he has no choice. He activates the contamination resistance trait. He tells himself he has to believe, and gives the command. Servo is shocked as he watches the scene. Kim's hand begins to deform. His face becomes monstrous. Unlike anything normal, he's becoming a mutant monster. Kim was ready to face the Hedgehog, but a circle forms around his head, and then he unleashes a magic spell against the mutant, slowly draining the Hedgehog with the attack. It's thrown against a structure. Servo wonders what that was, and if Kim was a monster, he had become a mutant while fighting another. He tries to understand how it's possible as Kim acquires the mutant trait. He asks what the hell that was, but decides he needs to get out of there. Kim's shadow blocks Servo's view. Then he extends a hand toward the leader. Servo just closes his eyes, but he realizes nothing happened. Kim lets out a soft sigh, and Servo wonders how he turned back into a human. Then the warrior collapses to the ground, panting he says that he did it. Even after taking on a mutant form and having corrupted muscles and deactivating his corruption resistance, it's believed that once you become a mutant, there's no going back to normal, but he knew he could do it, because he could alter his traits as long as he could still think clearly. That's how he managed to endure the transformation and revert mutant back to corruption resistance. The stadium was completely destroyed. Kim was dizzy after the battle. He felt as if his bones and muscles were rearranging inside his body, and he hoped to never go through that again. Still, he gets up. In the hedgehog's mouth was a purple sphere. Kim picks up the item. He'd obtained a level 1 mana core. He thought it was all worth it. He's thankful he got the level 1 mana core, since this cleanup job was extremely profitable. Meanwhile, Servo asks if the young man is okay. Since he had turned into a mutant, he wants to know what happened. Kim says it would be annoying if strange rumors about him started to spread, so he claims he risked it all, betting he could turn back, and that it was pure luck. Servo is surprised by this and says it was very strange, but Kim places the mana cores in his hand. He says they're heading back now, as he wants to get some fresh air. His colleagues thank him for the level 0 mana cores. The warrior reflects that he saved their lives and even gave them a share of the profit, so they'd keep it all a secret. Servo remains silent, watching Kim. And in the task force room, Seonsu thanks his employee for going through such a hard time and says it must have been terrible. Kim confirms it was a tough job, but wonders why he's being so flattering. Seonsu remarks that he should have mentioned he was a superhuman. He would have given him a proper job instead of cleanup duty. The warrior thinks to himself that Seonsu believes he's a superhuman. In Arcane Soul, a superhuman awakens an ability, allowing them to gain powerful mana. In a world where strength is authority, superhumans are nobles. It made sense for him to think that, since you'd have to be a superhuman to defeat mutants, even though he only won because of his traits. Seonsu says he should pay him for the cleanup. Kim says that would be great, thinking he'll let him believe he's a superhuman for now. The agency leader says he cleared 5 regions, and they take a 20% fee from the 50 million won total. If split among the group, that would be 5 million each. But this time, he'll do it a little differently. He's only going to take a 5% fee from his share and add a bonus. Kim is happy to get 12 million. Seonsu says he was happy to work with him, while the young man thinks it's nice being a superhuman. Leaving the room, he wonders how he'll spend all this money. He runs into a bald man who says the warrior seems to be in a good mood because he must have gotten a good payout. Kim agrees, saying they worked well together. He recalls that this is one of the people he worked with last time. The man then says the reason he's here is to ask for a favor. He explains that his wife is sick, and he was wondering if the warrior could lend him some money. He apologizes for asking for such a favor, since they only worked together once. Kim reflects that it's not a good idea to help others in this world. They could betray you at any moment, and it's hard enough just to support yourself. Kim takes the man's hand and tells him not to do that, as he's older than him. He says it's not much, but he should use this, handing him some level 0 mana cores. The young man feels bad about ignoring him. Nighttime, in a dark alley. The man shouts that he was an idiot for just pretending to be a poor old man, and he gave him all this. Servo wonders if he's new to this kind of thing, and the man bets he would have given more if he'd mentioned his son too. But it was annoying that they paid him more than the other workers. He even gave some of his share to the fake superhuman. Servo sighs, saying he's not even a superhuman, and that it would be a good idea to teach him a lesson. The old man asks if he has a good idea, and the leader asks if he can't see it. A malicious smile spreads across his face. Because that idiot must have some kind of strange ability, he says they already know his secret and they're going to teach him, crushing all the level 0 cores, because he was going to show him just how scary this world can be, in a huge, beautiful building. Kim remarks that money is definitely great. He never thought he'd see the day he'd get a massage in a place like this. The game was better than reality, but the masseur squeezes his arm. Kim reflects that he spent 3 whole days resting at the hotel, but still feels sore. From now on, he'll have to think twice before using the mutant trait. Changing traits isn't as omnipotent as he thought. His body changes depending on the traits, and the severity of the side effects increases the more his body changes. The problem is how he's going to survive while limiting his use of traits. He notices something strange out the window. He wonders if it's the Iron Fist gang, since they're still walking around with that arrogant air. Arcane Soul is dominated by local gangs, not by the law. It's only natural, since there are so many monsters around and people depend on superhumans. He at least survived the first part, but it would be foolish to rely only on his traits in such a dangerous place. A smile spreads across his face. He says it all comes down to items. He goes to the item shop in Seoul. A woman asks if the young man is there to sell some things, and he confirms, saying he has some monster byproducts. She looks down and says she should warn him beforehand. They don't buy level 0 cores. Kim tells her he already knew that, and he'd like to sell something else. This surprised the girl as she looked at the core. She asks if it's a level 2 mana core, and Kim confirms, telling her to take a look. He thinks it was nice to see her surprised, and that the effort in the hotel room was worth it. He fused everything he had, and thank God, managed to get a level 2 mana core. Its price changes depending on the level, so to sell it for the highest price, this is how it has to be. The girl hands over 4.77 million won for the core, and Kim thanks her. He asks if they happen to sell any weapons or armor there, and the woman confirms, asking him to follow her. Kim enters the stockroom door. A smile spreads across his face. He says it looks like they have everything, thinking that these were all basic items he used in the game. The girl tells him to feel free, and Kim reflects that it's time for him to gear up. He puts several weapons into his backpack. As he walks out onto the street, he says it finally feels like he's playing Arcane Soul. A female voice says, "Excuse me," to Kim. She asks if he's a mercenary, because she needs help. Kim says no and tells her to find someone else. But the girl hands him money and says she's here on a business trip, but the Iron Fist gang is scary. She wants to know if he can protect her on the way to her apartment. Kim thinks that 500,000 for a bodyguard sounds like a daily quest, and maybe he should take it. Touching her shoulder, he says he can't just ignore a woman in danger. He points ahead and asks if they should get going. They go up an alley in the outskirts. The girl says they're almost there. Kim reflects on how strange the place is, since there isn't even an ant on the ground, let alone any people. The girl enters an alley and says it's down that street. Warily, Kim turns his head to look. He sees the girl in the darkness, saying they're almost there. The warrior comments that it's very dark, and he can't see properly. He obtains the night vision trait, which he wasn't expecting. He notices a gun in the darkness. The girl was ready to shoot him and says the mercenary is more careful than she expected. Kim wonders why she has a gun, and if this woman was planning a trap for him. But Servo stops him from running, asking where his junior is going, and that it's good to see him again in a situation like this. Kim asks what he did to deserve this. Servo says he didn't do anything, but he's just an idiot, and there's no other reason. Kim tries to escape by running in the opposite direction, and the leader asks how he can start a conversation and then just run off like that. He orders them to shoot at the warrior. The bullet hits Kim's back. He falls to the ground at the bottom of a staircase. Servo complains that she should have shot him in the legs, not the back. The girl says it was better than him getting away, and the leader thinks he's lost his life. He turned back into a human after becoming a mutant, and he was sure some mage would buy his corpse. A companion comments that he'll grab the bag and his equipment for now. Servo says there's really no helping it, and they'll do that first. But the body is no longer there, and he wonders where it went. A glass pane from the ceiling shatters, hitting one of Servo's partners on the back of the neck. They wonder what that was, and Servo wants to know if Kim is still alive. The young man tells him he can bet on it, because he wasn't going to lose his life to someone who repays kindness with betrayal. He had left the armor shop already wearing a bulletproof vest, and thanks to that, he gained the trait he needed. Called Play Dead, Servo shouts that he broke the streetlight and he can't see anything, but Kim is already behind him and asks if he's looking for him, because he saved his life, and now he's going to take it, insulting the group's leader. He lands a punch on the man's face, throwing him to the ground. Servo tries to get up and sits on the ground, but he tries to kick Kim, which the young man just dodges, saying that Servo should have been grateful for the save, and that taking the life of his savior wasn't the right thing to do. He punches him in the face again. Kim gets ready to stomp on his face, but the girl fires a shot before he can, asking if Servo is okay. Kim looks at his wounded arm and thinks that he was too careless. Since in Arcane Soul, the scariest things aren't monsters and mutants, but people. He was naive and trusted people too easily, and he won't make that mistake again, drawing a gun. He shoots the girl's hand and knocks her gun away, hitting another group member in the shoulder, and says it's already over. Kim fires at the wall again, saying he should take Servo's life just as a precaution, and the man tries to kick him. The warrior didn't expect the move, so he barely dodges it and loses his grip on the gun. Servo's legs finally transformed. He managed to undergo the superhuman awakening at that moment, and they did a terrible job developing this game. The superhuman awakening is something all playable characters can go through. It's considered a basic growth system in the game. According to the world of Arcane Soul, a level 1 superhuman is strong enough to threaten a civilian armed with a rifle. In other words, he has to deal with a superhuman with nothing but his bare hands. Servo disappears from Kim's sight, and the young man wonders where he went. The awakened one was using his abilities. Servo's abilities are stereoscopic movement and kick. This stereoscopic movement power allows the user to use the incredible elasticity of their legs to move freely. Kim notices he used his stereoscopic movement to climb the building's wall. Servo yells that he's going to send the warrior to hell and he needs to dodge this. The warrior rolls away, intending to dodge the blow. The awakened one asks how he managed to dodge, leaping off the ground again towards the boy. He yells that he won't be able to escape this one, with a smile on his face. Kim says he has no intention of dodging, using an expandable baton to block the leg, and calls him an animal while thinking this purchase was a good idea. A few hours earlier at the armory, he wonders if buying a gun is worth it, but since Warrior Kim is a warrior class character, even if he got stronger, There's a limit to how well he can handle a firearm, and just in case, he'll buy a warrior-class weapon too, picking up the baton in his hand. Each character has weapons and traits that are most effective for their class, and that's why, in order to beat Servo, he needs to use a close-range weapon and traits suitable for a warrior. Kim attacks vertically, landing a blow on Servo's shoulder, and he gets the attack trait. His first class-specific trait was the warrior class trait, attack, and right now, he presses forward, using a down slash, an upswing, and a thrust, finally finishing his sequence with a side slash. Servo looks to the side as he dodges, attempting a high kick to Kim's head. He wonders how he'll dodge this opening, because he can't stop now after coming this far. So even if he breaks a bone, he'll keep attacking, hitting Servo's thigh. The kick hits Kim's forearm, and the baton injures the awakened one's thigh. An aura surrounds the weapon once more, as the warrior acquired the trait called Combo, the best warrior class trait for the early stages, using attack and combo to hit Servo. The awakened one begs him to stop, but Kim lands the final blow to his stomach, leaving Servo unconscious on the ground. As the rain falls, Kim is thankful for defeating the awakened Servo. His hand turns slightly reddish. He wonders what this strange sensation is, because his whole body was aching, and yet he felt something overflowing inside him, wondering what it could be. An explosion occurs on the scene, the day he discovered the cruel truth of the world of arcane soul, awakening as the superhuman, level 1 warrior Kim. He opens his hand, which is surrounded by an aura, closing it and thinking that he's a superhuman. Then Kim shouts happily about his new condition, because he'll not only start getting offers for high-paying mercenary jobs, but also low-interest loans, and a man with a cigar asks if he did it. Kim turns to look, because a large man stood before him. This was Iron Fist Kim, the second basic character given in Arcane Soul after Warrior Kim, a reinforced soldier with a prosthetic arm, skilled with firearms and precision shots. The problem was, he was the leader of the Iron Fist gang. Kim realized he had fought within their territory and must have seriously provoked them. The soldier asked if he even knew where he was before causing a scene. The young man replied that he was attacked and couldn't just let himself die there. The gang leader cocked his gun and asked if they were scarier than the Iron Fist gang. Kim knew that if he kept fighting, he would lose his life for nothing. But the soldier pressed the gun to his chest, telling him he'd made a horrible choice, because he was about to show him what happens when you mess with his territory. Kim gave him a terrible glare. He asked if that was so, and mentioned the soldier had overlooked something. Grabbing the gun in his hand, and stating that he wasn't the type to lose his life so easily, he pulled the trigger. The soldier reflected that Kim had fired the gun himself. Kim wondered what that was as he got up. It only tickled. He was already healing, thanks to his regeneration trait. The soldier remarked that he had a very interesting ability. Kim knew it was regeneration, the evolved version of the wound recovery trait, a trait you could only get once you became a superhuman. It would all be over if they underestimated him. He decided to go with a bluff. He declared that he hadn't survived on luck alone. It didn't matter who they were. If they messed with Warrior Kim, they'd better be prepared. The soldier repeated his name and said he liked his courage. He would let him go this time, but now Kim was in his debt. Touching Kim's shoulder, he told him to make sure he understood what that meant. The warrior said he'd remember that, wondering if the soldier had recognized him. The gang leader then extended his hand, suggesting they work together next time. Kim considered it. The Iron Fist gang wasn't the type to betray someone, and building a connection here wouldn't be a bad choice. He said that sounded good. He grabbed the man's iron hand, telling him they'd see each other around. At the Jamsil Superhuman Tower, Kim thought he had no idea when he'd seen it in the game, but it was a sight to behold. It was completely different from his hometown. A girl thanked him for visiting the Superhuman Tower. She asked if she could help, and Kim thought she was beautiful. He wondered if she was an NPC. The girl mentioned that if he was there for his certificate, he should go to the machine over there to measure his mana and trait circuit. Kim thanked her. He thought that she had guided him without him even asking. That's how much he looked like a rookie. Anyway, once he got his certificate, his real life would begin. Something strange happened, pulling at Kim. People joined their hands, saying the saint was here. Kim thought that was a unique airship. A rune covered the floor of the building. That was the order of the old father. He wondered why a boss was here. He was still in the tutorial timeline, and she was a saint, not a boss. Meanwhile, the people prayed to her. As the story progresses, it's revealed that the order is actually a cult disguised as a religion, and they start attacking citizens indiscriminately. The people wondered if the saint was there for a mana measurement. They figured she must want to renew her level. An aura enveloped the saint. She smiled up at the sky. Kim remarked that it seemed like a loud mana measurement. The circuits turned yellow. The aura began to dissipate. Looking up at the sky, the saint continued to smile. The citizens prayed with apprehension. The saint was a priestess class, with a mana level of 8 and a 6-layer circuit. The whispers continued, talking about about the saint's traits and her 6 skills, but Kim reflected that this wasn't the time to be cheering for that. A level 8 superhuman could be compared to an aircraft carrier squadron, a walking national-level superpower with the strength to decimate Seoul in the future. But if he said that now, they'd call him a madman and throw stones at him. For now, he would just measure his mana. It would attract too much attention if a rookie like him had 6 skills, so he'd reduce it to 3. The saint suddenly looked to the side. Her subordinates asked what was wrong, and she said that Kim was unusual. She went after him, saying he had a rather intriguing ability. Kim was startled and backed away from the saint. He wondered what the boss had just said. She had somehow sensed that he had switched his traits. Kim had his skills equipped. A soldier asked why the saint would talk to him, as he looked like an ordinary human. The saint grabbed Kim's hand. She asked if she could know his name, and the young man introduced himself as Warrior Kim. He thought about the only reason a priestess would ask for someone's name in Arcane Soul. The saint said she was representing the Order of the Old Father to baptize him. The Old Father, Lord of the Black Gold Throne, always desired rare powers like his. She asked him to submit and find peace in this hellish world. The people commented, envious that he was being baptized by the Old Father's first daughter in person. Kim cursed the whole situation. If he got baptized and received the baptism trait, he'd have no choice but to become a paladin of the order. However, in the war against South Korea, the Order of the Old Father loses to significant figures from Arcane Soul. He put strength into his hand. Pulling it away from the saint, he thought he didn't want to be forced to bet everything on a faction doomed to be wiped out. The onlookers continued to buzz. Kim said he refused to be baptized. The saint was in disbelief, saying she must have misheard. The warrior denied it, saying he was serious. The saint said he was free to serve or refuse to serve. However, the Old Father had already laid his eyes on him. She placed her hand on his shoulder and asked him not to forget that a sacred seed was now rooted inside him. And if he couldn't overcome this small seed, his fragile free will would be meaningless. Kim was burning as he knelt. The onlookers wondered how a rookie dared to refuse a baptism and pitied him. Kim was afflicted with the divine fever, where he would suffer infinite pain as punishment. He thought he was prepared for this, but it still hurt as if he were on fire. The divine fever is one of the strongest debuffs in Arcane Soul. By causing infinite burning pain, it prevents a person from living their life, and the only way out is to be baptized. He had refused because he was thinking about the future, but it seemed he would end up losing his life right here. His eyes rolled back as he began to lose consciousness. Water was thrown on his face. Kim wondered who it was. It was the girl who had guided him earlier, asking if he was okay. No one helped anyone with the divine fever debuff, fearing the negativity that could spread to them. He was grateful. He decided he would endure a little longer. Kim acquires the divine resistance trait. The flame slowly faded, as he thought that he hadn't just refused the baptism without thinking. An aura expanded in his imagination. The first condition was to obtain divine resistance. Now, he would gather more mana within himself. He equipped the trait to his body. The girl kept throwing water on him. Kim reflected that it felt like the water of life in this painful situation. He had to focus on this contrasting sensation. Fire and water concentrated at his core. The burning pain and the cold reason, using the mana inside him to extinguish the fire, releasing all the energy from the divine fever. A strong gust of wind blew the guide away. Kim acquired the mana barrier trait. He thought he had finally gotten the trait a defensive warrior should have, called Mana Barrier. The guide asked if he was okay, and Kim said he was, thanks to her. The onlookers wondered how he overcame the divine fever without being baptized. Kim reflected that he hadn't completely overcome it. The barrier was just a temporary measure, but at least he was free from the burning pain. The black flame was cool. He said it was time to measure his mana. The bar started to fill. A voice announced that the measurement was complete. It showed Warrior Kim, mana level 1, with a 6-layer circuit. People are saying I'm a super rookie, and that's why the saint wants me, but I've drawn too much attention. My goal was to get stronger in silence. The guide congratulates him, saying she's never seen anyone with a 6-layered circuit right from the start. She asks if they should go get his superhuman license issued, still at the superhuman tower. The girl hands him the license, congratulating him on becoming an officially certified superhuman. Kim reflects that he worked hard to get this. The girl offers to explain all the special level 1 privileges, but the warrior declines, saying he already knows everything. He lists them: reduced fees, the right to carry weapons, and as his level increases, he'll be exempt from fees, gain immunity from arrest, and have access to all transportation and benefits. The guide remarks that he's very well informed. Kim says he's a doctor of superhumanology. Anyway, he doesn't like to waste time. He asks if there's a way to leave quietly without running into the crowd outside. The girl agrees, saying she's already prepared a way. Kim is surprised by her reaction. She tells him not to worry and to follow her. The warrior thanks her for taking such good care of him. She even gave him a stealth cloak and showed him a secret passage. The guide says she doesn't mind helping others. Kim acquires the stealth trait and thinks he just got a free skill. The guide points ahead, saying he can exit through there. The rules only allow her to go this far. The warrior thanks her, saying it's more than enough, and the girl says it's no problem. Kim reflects that he didn't know someone so kind existed in Arcane Soul. She's beautiful too. When he gets stronger, he'll return the favor. He wonders what her name is and remembers he has her business card. Kim is completely stunned when he reads the name. Her name is Baek Soren. She's one of the 3 strongest characters in the game, a berserker who always had a terrifying appearance. He thought her face looked familiar, but in the game, she always had such a frightening look that he never would have guessed. To think that Baek Soren was so kind, he wonders what the hell happened to her. Kim slices the last slime of his mission. He thinks being a superhuman sucks. He's been clearing this monster cave for a week straight, and he's exhausted. Sitting on the ground, he says he's finally finished with the cave, getting this tired already. His efficiency is terrible. It's all because he had to focus his stats on maintaining the mana barrier. If he could customize his stats just for clearing the cave, he'd have been done hours ago, but he can't take any other jobs because of this damn debuff. So he needs a potion called Nectar to get rid of the divine fever, but it's so expensive that this cleaning job won't even cover the cost. Kim's phone vibrates in his pocket. He wonders how many more times Director Choi is going to call. It's such a pain. He says he's had enough, but he stops himself from ending the call, having just had a great idea. He goes to the Seonsu agency. The director says it's an honor to meet the one who overcame the divine fever without being baptized, the man who started with a 6-layered circuit. Kim agrees, saying that's just how things turned out. He asks if the director found the job he requested, and Choi complains. It was very difficult because Nectar is a medicine that can only be obtained from requests for level 5 superhumans or higher. Kim threatens to leave if he couldn't get it, but the director begs him not to. It's a contract matter, and of course he managed to secure it. He reflects that being Director Choi, he knew he'd find a request with Nectar as a reward. He asks about the mission's content. The director places a tablet on the table and asks if he's heard of Number 1 Security. Kim says it's his first time hearing of it and assumes it's a security company. Choi explains that it's a private military company, one of the biggest in the industry. The president and vice president are a couple, both from traditional martial arts families. The warrior comments that for such a wealthy family to make a request like this, they must need something difficult. Choi replies that their son is the problem. He's over 20, but still hasn't awakened as a superhuman. Kim asks if that's possible even with 2 martial artist parents. The director confirms he has accumulated level 8 mana, but hasn't awakened yet. The director explains their condition, a level 1 warrior type or higher, which should be perfect for Kim. The warrior breaks into a smile, saying he'll go check them out then, in a beautiful, bright mansion. Choi nervously shakes his legs. He says the president and vice president are very busy and not the type to be late. Kim reflects on how expensive the house must be, but a woman apologizes for making them wait so long. They were the clients, Seo Jungju and Lee Miri. Choi bows, saying it was nothing, and thanks them for their time. Kim does the same, thinking they must be at least level 6 superhumans. Both of them possess a considerable amount of mana. Jungju complains that he can tell Kim is weak just by looking at him. Miri tells him not to talk like that and suggests her husband go back to his room. The man sits down, grumbling, and the woman asks the 2 of them to sit as well. Since they came all this way, she assumes they're considering the offer. Kim says he first wants to check on their son's condition and see if there's a specific reason preventing his awakening. Jungju slams his hand on the table. He asks if Kim really thought they'd tell that to a rookie. Miri tells him to stop, explaining he's on edge because it concerns their son. It's not something they can tell an outsider. If he accepts the request, they'll call their son and explain the situation. She adds that she's sure he's in desperate need of nectar. Kim reflects that there's a confidential problem with their son, and they know exactly what he needs. He's becoming more certain. He says he'll accept the request, and that they should call their son. The living room door opens. The boy introduces himself as Seo Woojin. Kim stands up and says it's a pleasure to meet him, reflecting that he can't feel any mana coming from him. The warrior notices something different down below. He comments that the boy has a nice glove, and the young man agrees, saying it's more than he deserves, so he wears it gratefully. Kim comments that he figured as much, since he'd need a very strong mana seal. The family is surprised. The warrior breaks into a smile. He says he was sure when he saw the gloves. Even though it's a critical issue for a noble family, they chose to request a level 1 warrior-type superhuman, and they used nectar as bait to lure him here, because Mr. Woojin was also baptized by the Order of the Old Father, and the reason he couldn't awaken is that he rejected the baptism and sealed his mana to avoid the divine fever. He couldn't announce this publicly and has been suffering. He must have heard the rumor about a level 1 superhuman who overcame the divine fever, so he decided to seek me out. Wu Jin is completely incredulous at his insight. He says it's incredible that there's no need to explain anything more. He almost thought Kim was the protagonist of a detective series. Kim just says it's a matter of observation. He reflects that there's nothing to fear when you know the future. The moment he saw the picture, he understood. Because in the future, Seo Wu Jin becomes the paladin of the vanguard for the Order of the Old Father. He refused the baptism and held out, but his parents lost their powers, and so he succumbed and joined the order. Jongju approaches, calling Kim Sir, and asks if there's any way for his Wu Jin to escape the baptism. The warrior reflects that he was so arrogant a moment ago and is now acting all gentle. He confirms he has a solution. He thinks about having played Arcane Soul for 10,000 hours. Of course he knows how to escape. He touches the young man's shoulder and says he knows his pain because he suffered too. He tells him to trust him, because he's going to get him out of this. Wu Jin cries, calling Kim Sir. The warrior thinks that he doesn't care if she's a saint. She dared to try and baptize him into such a disgusting cult, and his future subordinate is on his side now. Kim steps back from the hug with a smile. He says, however, that before starting the treatment, he'd like to add one condition. The parents question this, but his mother says she understands, because it's no longer about awakening, but about overcoming the divine fever. And if he can cure Wu Jin, Kim asks for an additional condition. He would like them to teach him the mountain-shattering swordsmanship. The warrior keeps smiling, while Director Choi looks apprehensive. Miri approaches the young man, asking if he fully understands what he had just said. Kim is startled by her aura, wondering what this killing intent is. The vice president was much scarier than the president right now, and he understands she would be angry. But the mountain-shattering swordsmanship. People might doubt his decision to learn swordsmanship in the 21st century's information age, but strength is authority, slicing through a tank with just a sword. A superhuman swordsmanship can easily destroy an entire tank. High-level martial artists are traded for a squadron of fighter jets, worth trillions of won. If a level 1 superhuman learns and continuously trains in the mountain-shattering swordsmanship, they can reach level 4 effortlessly. It's basically a cheat. He remembered that only elites can learn this swordsmanship, wondering if he crossed a line. Kim agrees to it, should he complete the mission. Wu Jin calls out for his mother, causing her to dispel her killing intent. She finally accepts that it's okay, because if he succeeds, she'll give him a memory chip containing the mountain-shattering swordsmanship, along with the nectar, leaving Kim in disbelief. He thanked her, thinking he genuinely believed Miri was going to take his life, and now he's getting the swordsmanship too. Miri says, however, if he fails, she and her husband will be disappointed and angry. Kim assures them it won't happen, as it's best to start as soon as possible. They go to a room with a mana-focusing circle and 200 intermediate-grade mana potions. Miri says she prepared everything he asked for. Kim agrees it should be enough, and that he prefers to be alone with the patient during the treatment. The woman apologizes for what happened earlier. Her Wu Jin was forcibly baptized before he even started school. He never had a chance to make friends, let alone go on a family picnic. He had to suffer, unable to leave his room under any circumstances. It seems they've become very sensitive about the situation. From now on, she'll leave it completely in his hands. Kim reflects that everyone in their family had to suffer because of the saint's trap. Wu Jin thanks his mother, saying he's fine. The warrior thinks about how in the game, he ends up opposing his family and becoming a cold person in the future. He feels a bit bad for them, so he reassures the lady, saying he will succeed at any cost. Alone, Kim tells him they're about to start. Wu Jin asks what he has to do. The warrior asks why he's trembling and tells him to calm down. However, the boy assumes he's going to be terrorized, using injections and shocks to awaken his power. Kim asks what kind of treatments they've performed on him so far. The boy thinks that the general treatment for the divine fever was to drink nectar after awakening. However, Wu Jin has too much mana in his body, and the fever was severe for him, but the warrior kneels and says not to worry. He just has to keep everything he sees during the training a secret, the boy promises. And so they begin. First, Kim must expand his mana barrier to its absolute limit. This will make the barrier weaker. The warrior complains about the heat, but he uncaps the potions in his hand. He drinks while Wu Jin tries to call out to him. Kim just tosses the empty potions behind him, opening 2 more to drink. And thinking what a horrible business this is, he's already downed several vials. He obtains medicine addiction, where damage taken and mana consumption increase, but the effects of potions are abnormally boosted. He thinks about his focus on mana, using area darkness, which creates a shield in a designated area. Kim wipes his mouth, saying the divine fever has been completely pushed outside the barrier. Wu Jin shouts that it's too much, but the warrior tells him it's too early to celebrate, because he'll have to take off his mana-sealing glove and put his hand outside the barrier. Since I'm going to have to grab your hand, Wu Jin says the 2 divine fevers will start a resonance reaction. Kim steps out of the designated barrier and says his will be tolerable since he's inside the barrier, and he shouldn't ask why, just follow his orders. Wu Jin thinks that this is the first time he's ever taken off the glove, slowly removing it from his hand, and so The resonance begins. Kim wonders just how much mana he can have inside his body. He says it's terrifying, but he has to grab his hand. There's something terrifying about his divine fever. Kim thinks he's in a lot of pain. It hurts more than when the saint baptized him. It felt like his bones were being shattered. He has to maintain his focus to endure the pain. He thinks that neither the saint nor the divine fever matters. Then he leaps towards the barrier, landing on top of Woo Jin. Kim was completely breathless, holding Woo Jin's fist, and he says it was a success. He's now acquired damage absorption, allowing the user to absorb damage from others. Woo Jin comments that he took off the glove and it was tolerable. Kim smiles, because that was the reason they had to go through all of that. Beyond the barrier, he used damage absorption to take part of his divine fever. In other words, Woo Jin's divine fever has been weakened. Then he says this is the final stage as he draws his sword, telling Woo Jin not to stop and to attack until he awakens. The boy agrees. It's time to use the swordsmanship he's practiced his entire childhood. Then he gets into a different stance, attacking Kim's arms. He gets behind the warrior, saying he broke an iron gauntlet with a wooden sword and obtained the Protect trait. But even with this trait, he'll be in critical condition if he takes a hit from that. And it's absurd to think Woo Jin hasn't even awakened yet. The monster's sword approaches. He wonders what the hell kind of swordsmanship she taught this kid, because he's having trouble dodging his strikes. He fell to his knees, obtaining the trait called Evasion. Kim makes a decision. He's about to awaken. Woo Jin's mana was gathering. Kim wonders how the sword and Seo were glowing with the same color. He was SSR rank, called 1 with the sword. Kim thinks he's reached a state where the sword becomes the person. It was too overpowered of a trait for the warrior class, but this guy was very strange. He was in a total trance. Kim would lose his life if he got hit. First, he needs to use every defensive trait possible and focus the barriers on both of his arms. With the help of the mana focusing circle in this room, he combines two abilities to defend against the attack, getting thrown far away by it. A shield had formed on the ground. Kim obtained the Mana Shield trait, combining the Mana Barrier and Protect traits to create the Mana Shield. Woo Jin, being one with the sword, almost took his life. The young man groans a little. Kim is surprised by this. Seo's eyes return to normal, falling sideways to the floor. Kim asks how he dares to just peacefully lose consciousness after nearly taking his life, noticing the young man was practically asleep on the floor, and he lost a bit of control after awakening. In the game, Seo Woo Jin was a strong SSR rank character, but since he awakened as a warrior and not a paladin, he acquired the One with the Sword ability as his initial trait. Maybe he created a monstrous warrior by awakening Seo Woo Jin as a warrior instead of a paladin. And he doesn't know how this will affect the story in the future, but he was born with a silver spoon, has immense strength, and owes him a favor, so it's not bad at all. Miri says her son truly overcame the divine fever, so both parents thank him. Kim says it was nothing and that he told them he would succeed. Choi also praises his master. Woo Jin was still sound asleep. The woman says it's been a long time since they've seen him sleep so deeply. She doesn't even know how to repay this debt. Jongju smiles alongside his wife, saying that along with the promised nectar and the swordsmanship memory chip, he will provide an additional success fee. Kim tries to be modest. They both ask him to accept the 1 billion won, as it might be a small amount compared to what he did for their son. Kim accepts, as refusing again would only offend them. In the car, Choi jokes that the warrior basically won the lottery. The warrior says he knows because they are beautiful. While driving, the director asks if he's going to drink the nectar now, and Kim agrees, as he plans to take a break from dungeons for a while. Choi says it's understandable, since he doesn't want to attract the attention of the old priest's order, or of those who have heard about his rewards. But it was a shame, because if he refined the nectar, and then drank it, his mana would increase immensely. Kim agrees with his words. He thinks that if he refines it and then drinks it, he could significantly raise his superhuman level instead of having to spend it to cure the divine fever. Arriving at a hotel building, Choi calls the warrior and says he will find the necessary equipment to refine the nectar and that he should think about drinking it later. Kim smiles and thanks him, saying he'll think about it. He removes the cork from the nectar, saying he's going to drink it right now. He learned just how cruel the world of Arcane Soul can be during the servant incident, and can't guarantee that the director won't betray him. He has the skills medicine addiction, mana absorption, and potion dependency, so he can maximize the nectar's effect anyway. Tossing the vial to the ground, Kim starts to feel pain, saying it feels as if every fiber of his muscles is being torn apart and remade, and an incredible amount of mana is being stored inside him. He's completely tormented by the potion. Kim's eye snaps open, lighting up the entire building with the explosion. Warrior Kim reaches superhuman level 2, and by curing the divine fever with the nectar, he acquired the Black Flame, one of the highest grade skills in the entire game. The Black Flame was added to his skill list along with mountain-shattering swordsmanship, and he feels relieved, as he can now focus on training these skills without any issues. His phone starts to vibrate. He wonders why Director Choi texted him out of the blue, but he decides he'll do nothing and just train. However, the calls keep coming, more and more insistently. Kim wonders what the rush is. The warrior had received a series of messages telling him to get stronger and ignore criticism, so he wonders what this nonsense is, since Choi doesn't normally text. But he notices from the mountains isn't a name, and some letters are capitalized, reading about escaping the gang. Kim realizes he hid this message within the texts. The Dagger Gang was a group that opposed the Iron Fist Gang, and if the director wanted to betray him, he would have called as usual to buy time, but considering he sent this message, it means he was caught first. It seems the information was leaked while he was trying to prepare the equipment. Kim becomes very wary of this. He says he'll ignore it for now since he got the nectar he wanted. Everyone is responsible for their own lives in Arcane Soul. A scream is heard from the alley. A man says the old man was quite stubborn, because even after a whole night, he still won't say where the rookie superhuman was. Choi explains that he signed a contract because he trusted him and will never talk, no matter what they do. The man says he didn't want to resort to this, but he's left with no choice. He grabs an axe to attack him. He asks which one he wants to lose, the right or the left. And if he doesn't answer, it'll be the right. An explosion rocks the building. The man asks what the hell that was. While a subordinate calls for his boss, he questions what's happening outside. Wounded, the subordinate reports that there's some bastard out there. A precision sight was aimed at the room. Kim was launching grenades towards the building. He says the Dagger Gang picked the wrong person to mess with. He can't just abandon someone who keeps their promises in this cruel world of Arcane Soul. He says it's fine then, because he's starting the war now and fires the grenade. The gang's area explodes. He was armed with his sword. The gang members ask where he shot from and order everyone to find him. Kim says that as expected, they were scurrying out of the building like cockroaches. Even though the building looks like a normal apartment complex, he knows all about them. Because this is the Dagger Gang's dungeon, which he'd cleared until he was sick of it. A complex dungeon consisting of 6 different buildings. Since the Dagger mission is one of the tutorial quests, he can clear it with his eyes closed now. So he gets ready to run, saying that from now on, the veteran is going to complete the mission. The gang members look around, trying to find Kim. They wonder if it could be the Iron Fist Gang attacking, since they're the only ones crazy enough to do this. They vow to beat them to a pulp once they're captured, but then one hears a noise. He turns, asking what that was, and decides to check. Going behind the dumpster, he wonders what it is. There's nothing there, until a hand grabs his face, tossing the gang member to the ground. Kim reflects that the guy couldn't recognize him, even though he was right in front of him. There's no better combination for infiltration than playing dead and using stealth. So while those idiot gangsters are wandering around outside, he's going to enter the main building, heading through the secret entrance to the base. He decides that for now, he's avoided combat as much as possible to infiltrate. Since the Dagger Gang loves to place their hostages right next to the boss room on the 5th floor, he still has a long way to go. He will move stealthily to avoid being caught. But an alarm blares, warning that enemies are attacking and have already infiltrated the building. All members are ordered to arm themselves and gather at the designated meeting point. Kim complains that they've already found him out, heading to a door to infiltrate further. The gangsters ask about the Gatling gun, while Kim shoots at the warrior's weapons and feet. They call for a counterattack while cursing at Kim. He tosses a grenade into the air, causing another explosion in the building. Kim says that taking the long way wasn't his style, and just one wouldn't be enough. He throws all his remaining grenades. The explosions go off as he says it's cool that they liked his little gift. The smoke in the room clears. Kim observes the bodies on the floor, wondering if that's all of them, but there might be survivors, so he can't let his guard down. One of the gangsters pulls a gun and tells him to go to hell, firing towards Kim's face, but the young man just dodges, having unlocked the sensitive trait. Now that he has the trait he needed for this dungeon, it's the gangster who's going to hell. So he hits him, announcing that he's going up now that he's dealt with all the weaklings. He climbs the stairs slowly, thinking he might have reached the 4th floor without any trouble. But the real danger starts now. There will be gang members waiting on the 4th floor, right before the 5th and the boss room, creeping along a wall to observe. Kim is startled by what's in front of him. There was no one there, not even in the gambling room. He thought something was strange. He needed to concentrate, acquiring the focus trait. Kim hopes he can hear something coming from the floor above. He notices a drone flying by, which drops a grenade to the floor. His flashbang explodes. Kim complains that it's meant to blind him. An assassin approaches from behind him, trying to hit the man stealthily and injure his shoulder. The leader of the Dagger Gang calls him a little rat and says he's got him, but Kim defends with his shield and asks who caught who. The assassin retreats, asking how his dagger didn't pierce through. Moving far away from Kim, the warrior asks if he wasn't the one acting like a rat and who he was calling one. He reflects that he didn't expect the boss to appear on the 4th floor. That was dangerous. as it wasn't in the game, but he managed to read the patterns when the flashbang exploded. Kim closed his eyes thinking that the flash is the pattern for a chain attack upon entering the boss room, and he had to equip sensitive and focus before the boss could ambush him. The Dagger Gang leader was an assassin, and he has to rely on his 5 senses to feel where the attack will come from. The dagger complains that he blocked his ambush, and Kim tells him not to be surprised. He draws his extendable baton and says he'll make him regret targeting him, charging towards the assassin. He tries a horizontal slash. The assassin comments that he's acting pretty cool for someone so slow. He throws a dagger at Kim. The weapon gets closer and closer to the warrior. He hits it, knocking the dagger away. He reflects that, as expected of an assassin, the guy was fast. He only survived thanks to his sensitive and focus traits. That guy's dagger was imbued with poison magic. Even a scratch would send Kim straight to his grave. The longer this drags on, the worse it'll get. The assassin says he's lucky. If he surrenders now, he'll only lose an arm. Kim tells him to cut the crap and bring it on. The gang leader laughs, saying he can tell Kim's just a shooter by the clumsy way he holds that sword, even if it's a big one. The warrior reflects that the guy is pegging him as a reinforced soldier class, just because he uses firearms. The assassin then lunges forward, vowing to tear him apart and end his life in the most painful way possible. Kim says he only has one chance, raising his katana, and now the enemy's guard was down. The assassin says he's too slow. Kim turns his head, taking a breath, as he twists the direction of his katana, executing a reverse slash towards the assassin, who didn't expect a shooter to use a combo attack. So he ducks and counters the attack with his dagger. Kim apologizes to him, but as soon as he switches his skills, he's no longer a shooter, but a classic warrior armed only with swordsmanship, using the first style of the mountain-shattering swordsmanship, landing a cut on the man's shoulder with the mountain crusher skill. The assassin screams, spitting blood. He falls to the ground as Kim pants out of breath, saying that the moment he let his guard down, he was bound to lose. The assassin prepares to attack again, because it's not over yet. Kim wonders if he's using his final trump card. Blood splatters across the apartment windows. The assassin lies on the floor. Kim has a blade stuck in his abdomen. The warrior says he let his guard down at the end, and the poison is already circulating in his body, so he has to switch his traits, switching to his regeneration skills and healing his stomach wound. Kim gets up, complaining that he can take it, but it still hurts like hell. The gangsters get orders to move up. There's an intruder, so Kim says there's no time to waste. He has to get out of the building as fast as possible. In the Dagger Gang's general quarters on the 5th floor, Director Choi falls from his chair, thinking he has to get out of there right away. But someone appears in front of him. Kim asks how he ended up getting caught, cause he's pretty tough. Choi asks if he came to save him. The warrior says they should leave first because they're coming, and the director agrees. He then tries to stand on his own, without help. Kim curses the gangsters for what they did to him. He tells Choi to get on his back. Choi tries to refuse, but the warrior says they're in a hurry to get somewhere safe. He thinks that even after being so brutally tortured, the director remained loyal. He thought Arcane Soul was a hellish world, but he can still be surprised by touching moments like this. So they go to the Seansu agency, drinking several healing potions. Kim acquires the poison resistance skill and says drinking the potions cleared the venom from his body. Choi shows up with more cans, telling him to feel free to drink them all, but Kim refuses, saying he's had enough. The director says he can't apologize enough. The information was leaked while he was preparing the nectar, and he shouldn't have trusted his employees. Kim agrees, since he already drank the nectar anyway. This leaves the director stunned, but the young man explains that if he hadn't drunk it, he wouldn't have been able to save him. Choi complains that he had to drink such a precious nectar just to save him. Kim reflects that it's not his fault, but he'll let him think what he wants. A knock is heard at the agency door. The director wonders if the Dagger Gang has already arrived. He asks what they should do, while Kim turns and says they should welcome their guests. He opens the door and is surprised, because it's the Iron Fist Gang and their boss, Kim, of the Iron Fist. Kim welcomes the group. Iron Fist says it's incredible to think he wiped out the Dagger Gang. He knew Kim wasn't an ordinary guy and asks why he called them there. Kim thinks it's because it's his turn to get the reward for the difficult mission. The Iron Fist Gang and the Dagger Gang are rivals, fighting for power over the Silum area. In the game, the tutorial asks the player to annihilate the Dagger Gang to help the Iron Fist. For destroying the Dagger Gang, the Iron Fist offers many rewards. He then asks if Kim plans to create an organization or something, but Kim says no. The reason he's here today is to say that he can have the Dagger Gang's territory. He prefers to be alone and has no intention of getting into the underworld, so this was the best way to repay his debt from last time. Iron Fist says it's an offer where he loses nothing, and it seems like a bit much compared to the debt. Kim jokes that they're on the same page, because now that he's the owner of the Silum area, he must grant one wish. Iron Fist asks to hear it first. Kim reflects that it's something everyone likes to have. He wants a house for himself. Iron Fist repeats his request. Kim explains that he works alone in this difficult world and has realized he needs one, complaining that his stomach was injured during the fight with the Dagger Gang. So the gang leader agrees, since he got rid of their rival gang. The warrior compliments how straightforward he is. Kim of the Iron Fist asks what kind of house he'd prefer, a luxury mansion or an apartment. But the young man says no. He needs an isolated house with guaranteed security, soundproofing, and on top of that, a training facility in the basement. The gang leader repeats this back to him and says he has a house that fits the description, as Kim silently cheers. The house was on the outskirts of Silim, right at the summit of Gyeonubong. Kim reflects that this is the exact house given to the player as their first base in Arcane Soul. He relaxes at his desk and says, "This is what it's like to have a real house." He loved how pure the air was there, and the view was perfect. Such a beautiful and magnificent house. Kim comments that when he first fell into Arcane Soul, he had no idea what to do, since his hospital bill was around 20 million won. But now he has a house that's more like a palace. Not only that, he has the money from security number 1 and director Choi. He could stay in the hospital for a year without a worry. But here in Arcane Soul, there's no time to enjoy your success. As soon as the game's plot progresses, evil villains like the Saint of the Order of the Old Priest will appear and destroy the city. Kim grabs his pickaxe, because now it was time to find the real reason he chose this house, heading to the underground training facility, saying it should be somewhere around here, and now it's time to get to work. He strikes the stone wall. Everything shatters in front of him, leaving him surprised. He comments that it seems his skill is working, and he might finish this faster than he thought. Digging down as fast as he can, Kim complains that he never knew the treasure was this deep when he played the game, but he can't give up now. He'll be out of here soon. A liquid starts to seep from the rock. Kim starts to drink this water, slowly regenerating with the energy. And he loved this taste, because he can feel his body healing in real time. This is the effect of the mana spring. A spring brimming with mana. Even characters whose health has dropped to 0 can recover quickly when soaked in the mana spring. And most debuffs disappear, showcasing its incredible therapeutic properties. The place where he could access such an incredible mana source for free was none other than the house at Gyeonubong, the first base provided by the gang. He had to go through so much to get here, unlike in the game where he could do it with a single click. It was so full of vitality that he could easily feel its effects. Grabbing one of his swords, he comments that the mana spring has such incredible effects that it was perfect for training, because he can heal quickly if he runs out of stamina and then get right back to training. It was now time for the first and only extreme efficiency training for free-to-play rankers. As night fell at Kim's mansion, he realized it had been 2 weeks since he'd locked himself in the training room, and in this state, he could now easily activate the black flame. Mana began to swirl around the sword. Kim raised his sword high, using the first style of the mountain-shattering swordsmanship, Mountain Crush. He moved forward with the second style, Mountain Splitter. Finally, he thrust with the third style, Mountain Piercer. Kim noted that he was now used to using the mountain-shattering swordsmanship with the black flame, not to mention the useful traits he'd gained during his training. He remarked that he had completed his training goal, but there was one more important thing to do, the mana cultivation technique. If he had refined the nectar before drinking it, he could have reached level 3 superhuman. But now, as a level 2, there was still some mana left in his body. To fully absorb the nectar's mana and reach level 3, he needed a mana cultivation technique, but it wouldn't be easy to get, as it cost tens of billions. He went to Kim Chunbok's antique shop, where the owner asked why he wanted to buy it. The shop owner mentioned it had been in storage for over a decade, and Kim confirmed the purchase. And just like that, he acquired the mana cultivation technique. He was probably the only person who knew about the mana cultivation technique hidden in the antique shop. Now he headed to Shinwan Market, where the antique shop was located. He arrived at the shop and noticed something strange about the door. He wondered why it was closed. Not only that, but the doors were locked with a mana seal to keep anyone from entering. Shinwan Market was the place with the most shops in the region, and there was nothing you couldn't buy there. In the game, this place would be open during business hours no matter what. He wanted to know why it was closed now. Besides that fact, most of the other shops had closed down, except for this one. The place had become completely empty. Kim wondered if the world of Arcane Soul was different from the one he knew. A man was crouching next to a door. The young man approached and asked if business at the market had been bad lately. He thought that even the owner of the one open shop didn't seem to be doing well. The old man asked if he couldn't tell just by looking. With thugs fighting every day, nobody could come here. Kim noted that it was gang territory. The shop owner cursed the Iron Fist gang, explaining that ever since the Dagger gang was wiped out, the smaller gangs had been fighting each other every day. Kim repeated, fighting among themselves. In the game's original story, the Iron Fist gang personally destroyed the Dagger gang and claimed their territory. This naturally put Shinwan Market under their control, but this time, he was the one who destroyed the Dagger gang. Because of that, this market had become a battlefield, with other gangs trying to claim it. Kim questioned how this could be happening. As gangsters fought in an endless war, the warrior decided he would check them out first. Members of two gangs were clashing. The leader of the attacking group declared that this territory belonged to the Poison Gang. He told the Iron Fist Gang to go back to their corner. That was the vice chief of the Poison Gang, the Steel Scorpion. The Iron Fist member called them bastards, but someone else appeared, asking what this mess was in their territory. It was a group of men in their underwear. Scorpion complained that the perverts had arrived, but the exhibitionist, vice chief of the bare-skinned gang, said this was his territory. Scorpion told him to cut the crap and get lost. The exhibitionist asked if they were going to continue committing this sacrilege. The Iron Fist member thought they were all crazy and that he should get out of there. Kim appeared, commenting on the chaos. The gang member recognized him as the one who wiped out the Dagger Gang, but the warrior told him to get up and do his job. He told those damn thugs to stop messing around and gather there. He ordered the Iron Fist member to hold back, saying he would help. He reflected that to return the market to normal, he needed to establish a hierarchy. Scorpion asked who he was to dare tell her what to do. The exhibitionist questioned if it was an offer. Kim thought that if he went all out, he could probably win, but it might cause unnecessary harm to the merchants. So, he needed to show them his strength first, preparing his combat stance. Scorpion repeated, mountain-shattering swordsmanship and divine fever, and the exhibitionist asked if he was the one who annihilated the Dagger Gang by himself. Kim confirmed he was and said he'd be generous this time. He made an offer they couldn't refuse, to settle things with one-on-one fights. The vice leader of the Poison Gang asked if he thought she was stupid enough to face a warrior in a one-on-one. The warrior said they would compete in whatever category she felt most comfortable, so they stood facing each other. He asked if the man's specialty was mind control, because if he could resist it, the victory would be his. The bare-skinned man said it was an honor to meet such a handsome man. He wanted to put the competition aside and have him join his religion of the primordial goddess. Kim questioned why he would join such a disgusting order. Since his religion wasn't even one of the seven, nor was it second tier, it was just some random faith. He wouldn't join a pseudo-religion that wasn't even listed in the Peace of Westphalia. The bare-skinned man said that was expected of a non-believer, and he would make sure to change his mind with the love of his goddess. He prepared his skill and commanded Kim to kneel, saying he would grant him the opportunity to meet his goddess. Kim thought that the mind control of a priest class was definitely strong. His eyes narrowed slightly. He felt the urge to kneel before the man, but he broke the control and punched the man in the face. The man fell to the ground, groaning. Kim reflected that not even the Saintess could influence him. Meanwhile, the members of the bare-skinned gang decided to retreat. The young man turned to Scorpion, who commented that he wasn't so bad. But the Poison Gang was on a different level from those perverts. Kim said he didn't believe it and would find out once they started. If her specialty was creating poison, she should give him her strongest to drink. The girl joked that since he was willing to lose his life, she would help. The Iron Fist gang member said that drinking poison was a death wish, but Kim said he was confident and that everything was fine. Meanwhile, Scorpion held out a cup of poison and said if he could withstand it, he'd win. The warrior thought, as expected, she gave him the picnic knockout, the poison that causes the most pain of all. He commented that the smell was awful and that she'd get a punch if he survived. The woman laughed and told him not to beg for the antidote after drinking it. Kim downed the cup, saying that wasn't going to happen. The poison began to take effect on his body. The young man fell to the ground. He felt like his blood was boiling. The girl asked if he felt it now. If he begged for his life like a dog, she would consider helping. Kim needed to focus. Their poison was made by mixing a special medicine, and poison resistance wouldn't work. He had to endure as much damage as possible with his healing traits, so he could control the poison somehow. Scorpion was impressed that he was focusing the poison's energy into his arm. Kim unlocked medicine resistance and thought he was ready. With this skill, he could control the poison with his mana. He said, and finally, he made a small cut on his palm, causing all the poison to pour out onto the ground. The Iron Fist member noted he had concentrated all the poison's energy into his hand to remove it. Scorpion thought it was impossible. She had a shocked expression. Kim grabbed her hand and said her poison was a real piece of work, but now it was his turn. He broke her finger. The woman groaned in pain, falling to the ground, now without her prosthetic. She asked if he thought he could get away with doing that to her. Kim told her to stop with the typical loser talk and get lost. She left, saying she would remember this. The members of the Iron Fist gang began to celebrate, cheering for the warrior Kim, and the young man thought that victory was certain. What mattered now was what came next. So the merchants gossip among themselves that the Iron Fist gang won, and wonder how much they're going to bother them. Kim tells the gang member to admit he did all this to earn it. The member thanks him, but the warrior tells them to keep something in mind in this market. The protection fee will be half of what the Dagger gang used to charge. The member says they won't make a profit, The warrior asks if he's talking back to him. The executive denies it, saying his boss would understand. The merchants call him the savior of Shinwan Market. They thank him with all their might, but Kim says he only did it so they'd give him some discounts. He thinks to himself that Shinwan Market has literally everything. The merchants agree to give him at least an 80% discount anytime, and just like that, he gains favorability points from the NPCs. Kim goes to Kim Chunbok's antique shop and is welcomed. He says he's heard a lot about him, the hero who saved Shinwan Market. The young man tries to be modest, but the merchant explains that the gangsters have been causing a lot of trouble. He had to close his shop after being dragged into a fight and breaking his arm. Kim asks about his treatment. The old man says he had Qigong treatment and it was effective. If it weren't for the therapist, he'd still be stuck in the hospital. Kim asks if there's a Qigong therapist in Silim. The old man tries to introduce him, but the young man says he wants to buy something from him first. The merchant tells him to make himself at home, saying he has everything, except for what he doesn't. Kim says there's a lot of good stuff here, but he wants to see the items you have downstairs. The merchant asks how he knows about that. Kim explains he has his ways, while thinking to himself, don't underestimate a no-life with over 10,000 hours of gameplay. They go to an unauthorized door. Chunbok explains he doesn't show this to new customers, but he can make an exception for him. He presents his collection of magical products and tells him to feel free to look at everything. Kim Chunbok had many unique items back when I played the game, but above all else, he has the Horn of the Elder God, which has a cultivation technique sealed inside it. It was a seriously overpowered item, and now that the top priority was secured, he was going to grab everything useful. He places the products on the table, and the merchant says, as expected, you have a great eye for detail. 5 colored diamonds, magic glasses, a magic glove, and the Horn of the Elder God were all rare items. The total came to 2 billion won. Kim repeats the amount. Chunbok says that would be the price for a stranger, but since he's the guardian angel of this place, the seller can offer a reasonable price of 500 million. Kim jokes that he scared him and hands over the money, reflecting that the 80% discount for being an NPC favorite was just too sweet. And now, all he needs is to find a priest-class superhuman to release the Holy Seal. And of course, he already got a hint as to where that person might be. He asks if the merchant can give him the address of the Qigong therapist he mentioned earlier. The late afternoon was filled with buildings. Kim knocks on the door and asks if anyone's there. He presses his ear to the door, wondering if the person went out for a walk. But someone opens the door and asks what he wants so early in the morning. Kim notes the white hair and pale face. This was the guy he was looking for. He jokes that it's already late afternoon, and asks if he's really calling this time early morning. The boy asks what he wants. The warrior explains that his treatment is excellent. The young man perks up, realizing he's a customer. He says he thought Kim was a damn gangster. He asks where Kim's injury is, but the warrior thinks, just as I expected. The doctor tells him to lie down on the bed, but Kim changes the subject. He says he isn't there for Qigong treatment. He's there to ask him to remove this seal. The young man repeats, remove the seal from the item? He says he's a Qigong therapist, and that for a holy seal, Kim would have to go to a temple. Kim refuses, saying they'd ask for an absurd amount of money. If the young man can remove the seal, he'll give 100 million won to Priest Kim. He's in disbelief at the mention of his name. He asks how Kim knows his name, and Kim just nods. Priest Kim was the third character in the Arcane Soul tutorial. He's the priest of a forgotten religion that serves a deity who died 3,000 years ago. He was one of the few truly innocent characters in the entire game. With so many delinquent priests in Arcane Soul, it's very hard to find a genuinely kind-hearted religious person. In other words, he's very useful to him. The priest asks how he knew he wasn't a Qigong therapist. The young man says he'll keep it a secret, and Priest Kim comments that this won't be an easy task. Both of them kneel on the floor. The priest looks a little apprehensive. He begins extracting energy from Kim's artifact. Runes start to emerge from the band. He says it's working. He removes the band from the item using only his aura. He unleashes the Horn of the Elder God, from which he can obtain the Einherjar cultivation technique skill. Priest Kim is in disbelief that it actually worked, and the warrior says it's excellent. The priest then asks if it's a mana technique, while the young man thanks him, saying that from now on, he blows the horn, and an aura fills the room. His body begins to be molded. Kim notices that the wasted mana in his body was being absorbed at that very moment. He then stomps on the floor. He says the effect is incredible, like the silence of the deep North European Sea has entered his body. In about 2 weeks, he'll be able to absorb all this mana and reach level 3 as a superhuman. The priest claps, saying it's the first time he's seen a warrior-class superhuman use a cultivation technique. Kim explains that it's not common, and he was certain of it. His new friend tells him to lie on the bed, saying he must be exhausted. The warrior says there's a lot of information in his brain, and he's tired now, so he'll be in his care for a while. The priest jokes that he paid a lot of money, so he can rest as much as he wants. Kim reflects that he's a kind person, just like in the game. It's good to find such a trustworthy priest, as it will be beneficial in the long run. The young man suddenly wakes up in bed, wondering what that noise was. The priest was pouring gasoline on the bag of money. Kim asks what he's doing. He then places the gas can to the side. He flicks a lighter and calls out to the forgotten god to accept his offering and finally be resurrected. He drops the lighter on the bag. Kim wonders what the hell is happening now. He stops the priest by pushing the lighter down and asks what his problem is. The priest explains that he has to burn money and offer it to his god, because his god only accepts money, and it's the only way to gain divine power. Kim thought he'd still believe that at this point in time. He thinks about how the god priest Kim worshipped had been dead for 3,000 years. Even in the game, the religion had almost no power left until he revived it. Still, he didn't think he would be so clueless about how to properly serve his god, so he tells him the method is wrong. He doesn't need to burn money, he needs to burn and vaporize gold. The priest questions the idea of gold, saying it sounds like something a heretic would say. But Kim figures he's never tried it before, and the young man confirms it, saying his order established the method years ago. Kim says that's why his god hasn't been revived yet. Since it's hard to burn gold right now, he has an idea for another method, which piques the priest's interest. He asks about this other method. The warrior explains that since he was helped with the mana technique, he will help the priest in return. A pot was boiling with a yellow liquid. The priest says they should stop, that he shouldn't do this, but Kim tells him to just trust him and drink the gold, as his divine power will greatly increase. He concentrates and feels his god responding. He figures if Kim insists so much, he might as well try it. So the priest drinks the liquid and feels something different in his body. His straight hair starts to become spikier and spikier. He glows as he kneels on the floor. Kim asks about it, and the priest screams, because this effect was better than when he had to burn millions of one. The warrior explains that his growth will accelerate even more once he starts using this method, and the priest wants to pay him for this valuable information. Remembering something else he hands a necklace to Kim, who recognizes it as a sacred artifact containing the healing trait. The warrior accepts, saying he can't refuse, while thinking it was more profitable than he imagined. And come to think of it, Priest Kim's order always gave out great quests too. He asks if he'd mind praying to his god with him, because he wants to pay for the priest's service as well, thinking that now he was his. 1 week after the events, the priest asks Kim to stop. He feels as if his entire body is turning into gold, but Kim tells him he still has to consume more. He says he'll end up with mana poisoning if he levels up this fast, but Kim questions if that would really happen to him. The warrior assures him it won't, and tells him to get back to praying. He thinks that the priest shouldn't worry, since all 4 tutorial characters have their own unique resources. If warrior Kim has the pure body, then priest Kim will never get mana poisoning, allowing him to grow at an accelerated rate. Then he announces that the priest has finished everything. Mana begins to envelop him, illuminating the entire area. Kim covers his face. Meanwhile, the priest comments that he can't believe he's reached level 3, a level where he can even prepare an apostle. The warrior says that at this rate, it won't be long before he becomes an apostle of his god. Priest Kim says there's still a long way to go, but his friend replies that he already has enough divine experience to become one. But now that he's at level 3, he needs to call a regional assembly to get official recognition as a bishop, and the priest remembers his debt. Kim denies it, saying he just wants to help people, but thinks it's better not to forget and to become an archbishop soon to bring in divine artifacts. The priest asks for a favor. He was planning a regional assembly, but he's too embarrassed to go alone and asks if he can be his bodyguard. Kim accepts and tells him not to worry. He thinks that now that he's done with his growth phase, it's time to start his quest line. The next day, in a church, a few priests congratulate Priest Kim on reaching level 3. The priest thanks them, while Kim thinks about how small the scale is and how few people would attend the meeting. A man opens the door and says it's a truly pathetic sight. It was the bishop of the order who had arrived. He asks who gave the priest permission to organize a regional assembly. The priest informs him that everyone in the order has that right, but the bishop says that only applies to normal priests, not apostates. The young man questions being an apostate, but the bishop points out that he leveled up in 3 months, which is impossible through common methods. He must have sold out his brethren to receive a stronger divine power. The priest tries to deny it, saying he just found a great way to level up, but the bishop tells him to shut up, as he won't hear any more excuses, and orders them to capture him now. Kim interrupts, saying they're afraid of a boy like him. The soldiers ask who he is. The warrior introduces himself as the priest's bodyguard. Annoyed, the bishop shouts that this is an internal matter for the order, and they don't need an outsider involved. Kim says he's the bodyguard, not an outsider, and that what the old man is saying makes no sense. The priest explains that the method he used was simple, consisting of molten gold, but the bishop considers it profane and an act of evil. The young man then tries to argue that it's not profane and that God allowed it. The bishop prepares a spell, calling him a heretic, and says he will personally purify him and offer him to God. He must repent for his sins in the infinity of the eternal flames, causing an explosion in the targeted area. The cultists are in disbelief, but Kim complains that the bishop can't just attack without warning, as it's blasphemy. The bishop asks why he blocked his magic, but Kim counters by asking if he's sure about attacking an apostle candidate. Annoyed, the old man questions how a heretic could become an apostle, and the priest says he's not sure what he meant by calling him a candidate. Kim tells him not to worry, to eat the gold, and to pray. The bishop yells at Kim to get out of the way if he doesn't want to burn along with him, but the young man comments that if priest Kim proves to be an apostle, he won't know what to do. A light fills the hall. The priest had already started to pray. The bishop then questions if this is the ascension of an apostle. Kim thinks that he looks surprised, and that's why he didn't turn the priest into an apostle yesterday. Since this old man is incompetent, and not only that, he's jealous of the priest, he has to get rid of him now. The condition for Priest Kim to awaken his trait is for him to swallow a golden work of art from a different order. While the bishop is being accused of blasphemy, it won't be difficult to turn the priest into an apostle. Priest Kim calls out to his lord, leaving everyone in the room in disbelief, while Kim points his sword and says that while the apostle was there, it was time to teach the heretics a lesson. He asks the priest to ask God something. How should he punish the one who took a fellow bishop's life out of jealousy and tried to frame his own son as a heretic to send him to hell too? The bishop asks how he knows that. The priest receives a divine message, saying that God has ordered him to take the priest's life. Kim rests the sword on his shoulder, stating that since it's a divine order, he can't refuse, and so he swiftly defeats the bishop. The soldiers wonder what the hell is going on, and the faithful whisper among themselves. Kim reflects that he took his life before he could cause more trouble. The priest tries to argue that he was still a bishop of the order, but the guard shows no pity, saying he deserved it, and asks what God has commanded now. He says that God has ordered him to go to the Levant region, where the First Order began, and offer gold to him there. Kim says that choosing gold was definitely the right choice, and that he should go there to expand his influence. While Kim thinks that it's time for the priest to pay up, the priest says he doesn't know how to repay his debt. But before that, he's going to give him a gift from the storehouse. Kim tries to be modest and says he doesn't need it. Outside the church this time, Kim comments that this reward made him feel good about helping the priest, and he gave him some very valuable items. He finally got the first R-rank holy sword, which costs billions. And on top of that, a divine statue that grants a sanctuary around his location. Sanctuary is an ability that transforms a certain area into a safe zone according to the owner's will, and if an enemy invades, it expels or suppresses them. In other words, he doesn't have to worry about being ambushed during his training anymore, and it was time to have some fun with his training. In the Mana Springs pool, Kim was submerged in the water. He stands up, looking completely thin and exhausted. He complains that he might have trained too much, as even the Mana Spring isn't healing him as much anymore. But even though that happened, he had plenty of time to practice his Einherjar cultivation technique and mountain-shattering swordsmanship, and he can feel his mana and proficiency have increased. It was time for him to check the results of all his hard work. Choi asks if the superhuman is okay, and Kim agrees, saying he felt he needed to move around a bit. He wants to know if there's a mission he can help with. Choi mentions they have a complicated situation at the moment, and asks if he remembers the first landfill. Kim says yes, he could never forget it, thinking that it was because of that place he discovered just how terrifying Arcane Soul can be. The director explains that an entire cleanup crew went there and never came back, which means there must be at least 6 mutants there now. Kim asks about the Janitors Association. He then explains that the public officials gave them a secret mission, saying they don't want to turn this into chaos. Kim says that some people will definitely get fired if word gets out, and asks what the reward is for completing the mission. Choi says the reward is bad. Instead of 100 million per mutant, they offered an arcane rifle with a curse debuff. The warrior asks what kind of debuff it has. The director explains it's related to him because the rifle is used by the Order. Kim thinks it's a request he can't refuse, as the arcane rifle is used by the old priest's order and applies a black flame debuff, so he accepts, saying he'll go there now. The arena was filled with black flames. Kim walks to the center with a fire rifle. He notes it hasn't been cleaned in days and is already this contaminated. Something feels off. He can't see clearly and has to be ready for an ambush. He notices something moving in the smoke. Kim turns, but the figure moves to the opposite side. He realizes the monster sounds are coming from multiple directions, making it impossible to pinpoint their source. A purple light hits his face. Kim turns, saying the attack came from there, coming face to face with a bat-like monster. He starts shooting, telling the monster to go to hell, hitting the creature's chest, abdomen, and leg. The monster starts to fly overhead and Kim keeps firing. He wonders if that's all there is to it, because its wings seem to be bulletproof. The monster charges at Kim again, firing a beam at him, but the young man dodges. He says that if he hadn't switched to the evasion trait, he would have been torn to pieces. Facing a flying bulletproof enemy puts him at a disadvantage the longer the fight drags on. In that case, he lowers his weapon, aiming for the monster's head. He says he's going to end this fight. With a single precise shot, he pulls the trigger. The bullet hits the bat's head. It falls on top of Kim, spilling blood on the young man's clothes. He obtains the aim trait. He remarks that he won, not to mention he received a high-grade shooting trait, but a noise rises up around him. He figures the mutants are heading his way because of all the noise he made, but he can't face them all at once. Then he cracks a smile, saying that maybe he can. Kim stealthily hides behind a pillar. He thinks he'll use his traits and wait for the enemies to come to him. However, a type of slime was making its way over, an army of monsters made of a gelatinous substance. Kim smiles, saying the cute ones are here, as he pulls out a grenade, and as soon as they're all gathered in one place, he'll wipe them all out at once, causing a huge explosion in the area. Kim says there's more where that came from, firing a rocket launcher at them. The slimes begin to fragment. Kim remarks that he should use these smart tactics more often, but he notices something strange in front of him, wondering what it is, since these monsters didn't make any noise as they approached. So he didn't even notice them. But they aren't real mutants. They're a necromancer's specters. There are several of them in the area. A monster with a radio calls out to Mr. Superhuman, asking to have a conversation with him. Kim wonders about it being a talking specter. The radio starts to make a static noise. Kim realizes the guy was speaking through the specter's speaker. So the person talking to him must be the necromancer, and the specter asks why he's causing a commotion in his territory. Kim thinks it's strange to call a contaminated facility territory, but something comes to mind. The Janitors Association on the surface is a benevolent organization that cleans contaminated mana, but in reality, it's one of the game's notorious villainous organizations. Cleaning contaminated mana was just a cover for them. Their true nature is to commit all sorts of dirty deeds to expand their power. They were behind that incident too, and they created a situation where the government had no choice but to ask for help, thus strengthening their influence. In the meantime, they plan to use the incidents as an excuse to dismiss officials who were hostile to them. The Spectre suggests that since there's no real reason for this fight, he should join the Janitors Association because he's skilled. Kim scoffs at joining a terrorist organization of mutant creatures, and the Spectre replies that he would be among the top ranks of the association. The young man tells him to go to hell, as he doesn't like the name and it isn't cool. Laughing, the Spectre says he doesn't know his place, and if he doesn't want to join now, he can join them when he becomes a corpse knight. Kim fires his fire rifle, causing an explosion in the area. The young man agrees with the Spectre's sentiment, but the radio glows red, making the Spectres reappear. Kim complains that firearms are useless against Spectres, and in that case, he draws his sword, saying the holy attribute works wonders against dark monsters. The Spectre asks about the holy sword, wondering if he wasn't some kind of hunter. Kim tells him to shut up, because he's going to find him and tear him to pieces. The warrior cuts through all the Spectres in his path. Thanks to the attribute advantage, the fight wasn't too difficult for him, but still, the monsters were endless, and he'd have to change his strategy. With his specialized resistance traits, and adding his artifact's unique trait, he has 9 active skills, which should be more than enough. Then he charges forward, saying, "Here I go," launching projectiles from his sword towards the monsters. He notices it's working to a certain extent, so he quickly advances towards the army with his sword. One of the Spectres retreats. Kim thinks he's getting dizzy and just needs one more push, running to that same spot from before. Energy starts to form in his steps. Kim had just acquired a new trait called Charge. The young man marvels at his new skill. He runs, tearing the monsters apart, saying that a linked trait was coming, leaping as high as he can, and acquires the Jump trait. With Charge and Jump, it should be easy for Kim to escape the encirclement, and as for the weaker ones, he can run right through them, hitting everyone. Kim pants, out of breath after that. Most of the Spectres had been defeated, but the problem was his exhaustion. The radio comments that it didn't expect him to be a paladin, and wants him even more now. Kim tells him to show himself if he's so confident. The necromancer replies that he's not stupid enough to fight a warrior in close combat, and that he should accept this gift, presenting a level 2 monster. Kim complains that he hasn't had a chance to heal properly, as he dodges the servant's attack. A cursed arrow flies towards him, hitting Kim in the back. He wonders about the combined attack. The necromancer comments that his movements are decent, as he'd be very useful as a corpse knight. Kim remembers a certain rule in Arcane Soul. When fighting a necromancer, you can't fight his servant, charging to cut down the monster, but it dodged under his leg, asking where the necromancer went, and sees a light coming from the top of the stadium, saying, "There he is," and now he he can go straight for him, flying as high as he can, and calls the necromancer a damn coward. He's going to punch his lights out. The necromancer jokes that Kim has finally used his brain. Kim recognizes him, a B-rank necromancer named Charon. He's one of the directors of the Janitors Association and the final boss of the landfill. Karen comments that things won't go his way, grabbing his arms with spectral hands. The hands start to pull Kim down. Karen yells that he'll never reach him, and now he should go to hell, launching several arrows at him. The necromancer comments that he loved the sound of his scream and that he should know his place. Kim just reflects that this must be Karen's ultimate move, black fire, and the necromancer declares it's his end. Kim breaks free and says, "That's right." Karen asks if that's all he's got, calling it a lovely final effort. But the warrior replies he never needed to be right in front of him to begin with, because if he prepares for the move, something funny happens, changing his traits to 6 points in attack. Karen launches his skill and tells him to stop talking nonsense and just die already. Kim just prepares to deal with the blow. He thinks the time has come, since as soon as the trinity of swordsmanship, magic, and physique converge in perfect harmony, this trait manifests in the face of imminent destruction. The ultimate technique that cuts through everything, tangible and intangible, with a sword aura, slicing through Karan's attack. The dark mage screams that it can't be. The trait called Flash. It was the strongest swordsmanship that only those who have reached the pinnacle of the sword can master, and it slices the necromancer in half. An explosion erupts in the area. Kim falls towards the ground, sighing with exhaustion as he almost lost his life, but he still defeated the level 3 superhuman and dungeon boss, Karen. In the game, if you want to beat this dungeon at level 2, you need a full party. And even at level 3, you can't take it on alone with common stats and equipment. And he only managed to win because he'd played this game for over 10,000 hours. But with a smile, he says it's now time to collect his rewards. He goes to the agency. Choi praises him, saying he really managed to clear out that place full of mutants, and it was incredible, but Kim tries to be modest. But he complains about injuring his arm and says he should be more careful. The director apologizes for it. The soldiers thank him for his hard work, amazed that he defeated all those mutants. Kim just says he was doing his job. When he entered the landfill, something completely different from the mission happened. He asks if they recognize the stereos and cameras there. The soldier asks if it's the mana chip that creates specters, since it's something used by Karan from the Caretakers Association. Kim confirms that this incident was no accident. It was intentional. The soldier slams the table, cursing the association, and the warrior remarks that they aren't well liked. The soldier says they always charge ridiculous fees and have faced hardships and conflicts with them in the past, but they never expected them to use innocent people. Kim thinks the man has no idea. It makes sense, as the ugly truth about the Caretakers Association only starts to be revealed after completing the landfill mission. The soldier bows to the young man and apologizes, saying he was put in danger because of their case, but Kim accepts, stating he needed to stop those villains. But the man holds out a briefcase, saying it's the reward they promised. Kim asks why he's giving him 2 cases. He explains one is an arcane weapon, and the other is an extra reward for doing something so dangerous, and the warrior thanks him for it. He thinks about getting an essential potion for free, which he would have had to buy at the temple. The soldier asks the superhuman to be careful, since they plan to press charges against the Caretakers Association based on the evidence he provided in this way. Kim finishes his sentence, saying they'll retaliate against him. The soldier agrees, as they can't let something of this scale slide. But the young man says he'll be fine and will find a way to survive. Driving through the streets at night, Choi comments it's a good idea to stay low-key for a while to avoid the Caretakers Association. Kim thought that hiding wasn't a good idea. After completing the landfill mission, the player receives linked quests, inevitably leading to conflict with the Caretakers Association. This was natural since the player caused trouble, not to mention taking the life of the association's director, Karen. The important thing is that the Caretakers Association questline was split into several routes, and the worst one is to do nothing and waste time. In that case, the association's president will attack the player's house with dozens of superhumans. On the other hand, the route with the easiest difficulty. He asks if the director has heard of a place called Gyeonubong. Choi confirms, saying it's in the forbidden area south of Silim. It has a large-scale poppy farm, so there would be trouble if he went there. He explains that place belongs to the Caretakers Association, and Choi wonders what they have to do with poppies. Kim explains it's not about the poppies. They were conducting body modification and kidnapping at that location. They're more than just a criminal organization. Choi yells that they're insane, and the warrior confirms it, which is why he wants to attack that place first. Startled, the director swerves the car. Kim says he needs many things and shows him a list of what he needs prepared. Choi lists claymores and EMP bombs, things used in war. And not only would it cost a lot of money to buy all that, but Kim says that worrying about money is for amateurs. He shows him the items he obtained while taking down the monsters in the landfill. Choi says it's enough to cover the cost, but assures him that even he couldn't fight the association alone. The president was a level 4 superhuman, and the executives are level 3. Kim says he won't be fighting alone, but for now, he doesn't need to worry about anything but the items he asked for. 2 days later, at the Gaeon Ubong hideout, 2 guards were on duty. A spectral hand approaches from behind one of them. It twists the man's neck. His partner asks who's there, but he's struck in the chest and thrown aside. Kim appears out of stealth. He comments that he loves infiltration, no matter how often he does it. This should be enough for the outer guards. Now it's time to check the underground. Someone throws a punch. Steel Fist confirms for Warrior Kim and thanks him for clearing the way, saying he'll easily secure the underground, because they are definitely villains. Forcibly conducting body modifications on people and losing them has crossed the line. Kim confirms their destruction. He asks if he's checked the whole place. Steel Fist replies that he has, and that this is a very complete modification workshop. Kim tells him to keep it once they're done with everything, as it can increase the power of his men. The Fist asks if he can really defeat everyone since it's a problem. The warrior confirms, asking if he's ever seen him act without being sure, and the Gaeonubong hideout was their main source of money, yet security was weak. He lights a lighter, saying that in that case, this was the best place to start the association's downfall. The next morning, in a giant building, a person runs into the room. He warns the president that there's urgent news. The Gaeonubong hideout was attacked. The president asks how that happened. His subordinate explains it was the same guy who took Director Charon's life, and he invaded the Gaeonubong hideout. The president then slams his gloved hand on the table. He asks how he dares to attack so brazenly. He is Park Dayop, a level 4 superhuman. The subordinate says he also sent an image. Seeing a photo of Kim mocking them, the president asks if he burned down his farm too. Then he shatters the phone screen. He asks if his name is Warrior Kim, vowing to take his life and cut him to pieces. The soldiers go to check the Gaeonubong base. One of the men comments he must be a maniac for burning down the entire farm, but he orders them to capture the man and infiltrate quickly to end the situation, as he'll show the president the power of the Foreign Affairs Department. They proceed through the wreckage. The leader comments that he might try to shoot from a distance, so they should be careful. His colleague agrees, saying he'll capture him on sight. However, he notices a gun in a window. The bald man fires at the gun, thanking him for the good work. It shatters the glass window and makes the gun fly up. He says his prediction was spot on, and his colleague tries to flatter him. An earthquake starts in that area. The explosion hits some members of the army. The captain yells that it's a claymore, and his subordinate asks what they should do. Meanwhile, rocket launchers fire at the two of them. The captain was afraid of what might happen. Kim watches it all on a camera, laughing. He comments that it was great spending all night setting up bombs and mines. Thanks to his special trait, there's no way they can find the traps beforehand. The soldiers scream about the mine, and Kim comments that he's not crazy enough to fight hundreds of them head-on. He's going to defeat them all remotely from this underground control room. Several mines explode in the area, but there's a mana shield in the middle. A man comments that he came well prepared, despite how things looked, just as expected from a man who openly provoked their organization. A man asks to leave it to him. He says he has just finished analyzing his tactics. It is the cyborg, an R-rank level 3 superhuman, and the vice president of the Caretakers Association. The president orders him to be brought back alive, and that he must be defeated in the most painful way possible. Another grenade is thrown to the ground. The cyborg guides them, saying it's safe there. They should keep throwing grenades to check for traps, proceeding slowly, but a rocket is suddenly fired at them. The cyborg smacks it with his hand, deflecting the rocket. He asks if they found his position, and a soldier agrees, saying it was launched from the right side of the cover. They fire at that specific spot. One of the rocket launchers was damaged. The cyborg notes that this is excellent, as they're almost in the same building and they're going to show him what they've got, or maybe he's already scared by now. Kim watches and mutters at the camera. He says that, as expected of cyborgs, they're truly inhuman. An alarm starts to sound, surprising him. He comments that they arrived faster than he expected. The rookie assassin mission certainly lived up to its evil reputation. He grabs the doorknob. They open it, heading into the room. Ebony and Viper, 2 level 3 superhumans, ask why he's hiding like a rat when he should be out playing with them. But the room is already empty, and Viper remarks that he knew they were coming. Kim had his invisibility activated, and he says that he already knew. The Janitors Association's plan was to cause a commotion at the front, as if they were going to war, while executives attacked from behind. Of course, he knew all their tactics. So he throws a flashbang, telling the girls to take this, leaving both agents blind. They scream that it's a trap. Kim flees from them, agreeing, and says he wants nothing to do with them. Viper yells that she'll take his life when she captures him. The warrior runs, thinking the assassins will catch up soon. He has to move quickly. A hit strikes the wall, and Kim thinks he needs to defend himself first as he ducks. He creates a protective mana shield to stop the assassins. They fire at him. Kim tells them to shoot all they want because he'll block everything, but Ebony draws a revolver and tells him to block her bullets. One of the shots pierces the shield. Kim glances to the side suddenly. As his shield shatters, he runs. The young man then falls to the ground. Ebony asks what he thinks. Since the bullets are imbued with explosion magic, Kim curses his situation. Viper tells him to have some dessert as she throws a dagger, which hits him in the abdomen. Kim writhes from the pain of the impact. Viper says it's nothing compared to the pain she's about to put him through, and Kim scoffs, as if. He says they're just villains in cheap latex outfits angering the girls. The girl lunges at him with a kick and says she's going to fix his attitude. He's thrown into the wall clock. Viper asks if it hurts, explaining it's a potent poison that affects the arteries, so it'll be hard to endure. She grabs the young man by the collar of his shirt. Ebony announces they're taking him to the president, but Kim cracks a smile. He tells them they're welcome to their doom. He asks if they can't hear that ticking sound, because it reminds him of something. It's almost as if it's a giant time bomb. He activates the dash ability in his feet. Stay here and rot, he says, thinking that this pair is stronger than Karen and he can't guarantee a win fighting them head-on. He had removed all his special traits to pull off this act, luring them to the clock while their guard was down, because inside the clock he'd installed 1 billion worth of white phosphorus munitions. He tells the ladies to sleep tight. The girls yell that it's another trap. A massive explosion erupts in the area. Kim sighs, lying on the floor. He comments that he still managed to defeat the executives, but there are more on the way, and he has to recover quickly, especially since he doesn't know when that machine guy will show up. He comes face to face with the cyborg's army. Kim gets up, complaining, "Speak of the devil." He stands before the immense army, calling out to the young man while gritting his teeth. He asks if he defeated Ebony and Viper. Kim says he'll end up just like them soon enough, but the cyborg tells him not to dare lose his life so easily, since he'll make sure to modify him until he begs for hell. The young man complains his lines are terrible, and he should try being more human next time, but the vice president comments it's a waste of time talking to him. He raises his weapon toward him. Kim asks if he knows that he loves it when they modify their bodies beyond imagination, and thanks those idiots as he presses a button. Electricity surges through the cyborg's brain, and he questions what that is. As he's hit, he demands to know what's happening. Kim fires, saying 1 billion in EMP bombs and shotguns are his best friends when it comes to dealing with machines. He hits the entire cyborg army. Kim narrows his eye in surprise. He sees that the cyborg is still standing, enraged as he glares at the young man. Kim asks how much money he spent on his body, since EMPs don't work on him. The cyborg charges, saying he'll finish him here and now. He strikes his shotgun, asking if the young man plans to dodge forever as he attacks again. Kim thinks his power is too great, and he has to be faster than him. He strikes the cyborg's hand. He notes that everything except his eyes is metal, and it's bizarre, while the cyborg calls his sword pathetic. He readies a thruster in his shin and kicks, complaining that it doesn't even tickle him. Kim slams his back against the building wall. He thinks his body is covered in mana and the blades won't work. The cyborg steps on his chest. He asks what else he expected from his weak body. Kim calls his enemy a filthy RoboCop, as he reflects that it's a mechanical body moving with mana. The cyborg readies his blade and warns he'll sever both his arms and replace them with umbrellas. He asks what's with that cute little pistol, while Kim says he has an idea looking at the robot's disgusting body. His enemy questions if he didn't understand that mere bullets couldn't hurt him. Kim warns that it won't be a mere bullet. He activates the black flame as the bullet fires. It hits the cyborg's thigh, who asks what it is, as he's engulfed in fire. Kim explains that his mechanical body runs on mana, and black flames burn mana. In other words, once the black flames enter his body, it won't stop. He should have stopped his modifications at a certain point. The soldier begins to kneel, scorched by the fire. He then extends his sword, saying goodbye to the monster. The cyborg closes his eyes, groaning lightly. Now he's lying on the ground, and the young man is standing. He says that now only the final step remains. Outside, a rifle fires. He announces that it's time to eradicate the Janitors Association. They're just cowards fleeing without their executives. The soldiers try to flee, screaming that there's no hope left. But Kim comments that their screams are like music to his ears. A piercing pain hits the young man's ears, and he complains about his eardrums. He questions if he's finally going to show up when a war cry echoes. Those red tiger eyes belong to the president of the Janitors Association, telling him to wait right there. He crouches, preparing to jump, leaping towards Kim's location, and landing on the ground, ready to fight. Kim wonders what the hell that was, as he just jumped from the ground to the roof of a 5-story building. The president says he's never experienced such a great humiliation before, and will punish him with pleasure. For messing with the Janitors Association, he lunges forward to punch him. Kim tries to draw his sword to block the blow. He's thrown far from the building. The young man thinks he would have lost his life in one hit if he hadn't switched his traits to defensive ones, but he can't win by fighting like this. He unleashes a slash with his sword. The president easily dodges and says he uses interesting skills. Kim fires his black flame gun and asks what he thinks of that, but it's blocked by a mana shield, and he says he likes it. Kim thinks that he easily blocked his flashbang and the black flame, as the president charges in to punch him, hitting the young man everywhere possible. Kim falls to the ground, thinking he's unbelievably strong. As expected, it was impossible from the start, while Daop asks if this is all he has. The president was an SR character from birth. On the other hand, he was a beginner character. He has a higher level than him, and the difference is insane. The president questions if this is his final effort, while Kim asks if the president knows how he defeated his subordinates. He defeated Ebony and Viper with white phosphorus and the cyborgs with EMP bombs. He asks if the president knew everything, but he says that much preparation is impossible. Kim denies this with a smile. Daop is suddenly in total disbelief. Kim's clothes are being torn and he's getting hit out of nowhere. The only way for a level 2 superhuman to beat a level 4 was by activating the mutant body. His arms change, growing stronger and stronger. His legs get bigger and he grows in size, and Kim's face becomes completely modified. Activating the mutant warrior, Kim's skill. Daop asks how he could choose to become a mutant. Kim had a demonic face and opens his eye, thinking he's going to lose his mind at any moment, but he prepared something for situations like this. The Berserker's Goggles grants the user the Frenzy trait for a limited time. This was the item that would grant him the trait he needed most right now. He crushes the glasses in his own hand, gaining Frenzy. It eliminates all distractions from his mind, focusing him solely on the battle and unleashing a power beyond his limits. Kim thinks he can finally ease his mind, as nothing but bloodlust, violence, and combat now filled his brain. The demon charges towards the president, smashing into his robotic arm. Daop remarks that he doesn't know what skill the man just used, but one thing is for sure, things just got more interesting, and he wants to start experiencing it. So, the two of them are going to have some fun. Kim says that's exactly what he wanted. They exchange blows. Daop says it won't be enough, and Kim agrees, because the same goes for him. They trade several blows. Kim lands a hit on the man's side, and the president stumbles back a bit. The warrior gains 2 traits: super strength and iron armor, and the thrill of the fight takes over his consciousness. He could do this all day, and Daop acknowledges it, as he hasn't had a fight like this in a while. But he's already finished analyzing him, and victory was his. Kim charges forward, telling the director to stop bluffing, but he's surprised when he looks to the side. Daop explains that he was just throwing punches non-stop without any kind of technique. Kim swings horizontally, but the president dodges by dropping to the ground. Preparing a strike, he says it's like a punch from someone who doesn't know how to fight. He strikes the monster's chin. Kim falls to the ground, nearly unconscious, and he thinks that in hand-to-hand combat, he has the advantage. Besides, the frenzy effect was weakening. There's no other way. He has to put everything he's got into this attack. He needs to give up on close quarters combat. Daop wonders what kind of trick he's plotting now, because he's going to finish him right now as he charges forward. He grabs the president's forearm. Kim admits he's better at hand-to-hand combat, but he's not a fighter. He's a swordsman, transforming his arm into a bone blade. Daop is completely stunned by the blade, and Kim uses flash on the president's abdomen. He screams in pain, and remarks that the boy can even use flash with his bare hands. Kim says it was a good fight. Daop calls him a monster, before falling to the ground, finished. Kim thinks he pushed himself too hard. His body was giving out, suffering a debuff from the physical changes. His eye turns into a red dot, and it starts moving to the side. Kim screams in agony, but a yellowish aura starts to surround him. His face starts to become human again. Kim had reached superhuman level 3. Thank God I leveled up just in time, he says, because he was one lucky son of a gun. Falling to the ground, his hand still a blade. Kim was unconscious at that moment. He returns to his mana spring, resting beneath the healing water. Kim suddenly regains consciousness, asking if he's home as Choi calls out to Mr. Superhuman. He hugs him, asking if he's okay, while Kim asks what happened. The director thought he had kicked the bucket, finding him lying on the ground with all those guys from the Janitors Association. Kim realizes he brought him home. Choi noticed he was still breathing and put him in the mana spring, but he was out for a whole week. Kim notes that he has healed a lot. His director says he's incredible for wiping out the janitors alone. He's been getting calls with requests at the office, and Kim agrees that he's in a class of his own. Choi keeps flattering him, and Kim remains modest, but he made sure to gather the loot from the fight. The warrior should take a look later and see if he needs anything. Kim says he needs to finish healing first. But now that he's level 3, he has a place to visit. A week later, at the association building, he walks up to the mana measurement machine saying he's now level 3, and he's going to receive the official certificate with all the included benefits. Soren congratulates Mr. Superhuman. She's never seen anyone grow so fast and asks if he's going to found his own country in the future. Kim jokes that he won't go that far. He asks if he can get his certificate, and Soren guides him. She says there's the official certificate. He thanks her, and the girl says she's envious of him. Kim asks why she's envious. Soren says there are many reasons, and that she wishes she could be as strong as him. The warrior thinks it's strange for her to show that kind of emotion, since it's something unimaginable in the game. But he has nothing to do right now, and he might as well. He asks the girl if she wants to become a superhuman, and Soren says yes. Kim asks if she would like to be his student, because he can guarantee she'll become a superhuman. She asks how. Kim tells her to trust him, because he can see potential in Miss Baek. She gets excited hearing about her potential. Kim confirms it and thinks he can see her potential to become an SSR and asks what she thinks. Soren is silent for a few seconds, but she accepts, saying she thinks she can trust him. Kim says it's a wise decision and reflects that it's time to train an SSR rank warrior, and she doesn't need to pay a tuition fee. She can repay him once she becomes a superhuman. Soren says that sounds good and all, but she failed to awaken even after taking dedicated classes, so it won't be an easy task. Kim tells her to just trust him and not to worry, thinking he knows everything about her awakening. Sky-shattering star. It's a trait that embodies a murderous intent that stains the world with blood. That is Soren's power, gaining Waller's 1000% combat experience. However, while it boosts experience points through combat, it also comes with side effects. There's a risk of her mind being corrupted, turning her into a lunatic. Beck Soren has an awakening story that matches her unique ability. Kim says he'll need to prepare well, and Soren asks if he needs money. The young man says no, since she'll only need mental strength instead of money. A secretary interrupts them, asking for Mr. Kim. Someone has invited them to a meeting, and they must go to the 5th floor lobby. Kim wonders about this invitation, stepping into one of the elevators. He thinks that the superhuman tower is based on level floors, and since he was called to the 5th floor, it means he was invited by a level 5. No one comes to mind. He wonders who it could be. Woo-jin calls out to his teacher, surprising Kim. The young man says he expected it, but it really was his student. The boy congratulates him on receiving his level 3 certificate, and he was happy to see him. Kim says he is too, while thinking that he reached level 5 very quickly. He hands him a box and asks his teacher to take it, as it's a gift to congratulate him. Kim says he doesn't need it. It was an item containing the mana focus trait, perfect for a warrior who uses mana. He asks how he can refuse a friend's gift and touches Woojin's shoulder. The boy says he has a reason for calling his teacher and asks if he can ask for a favor. Kim wonders about his sudden serious expression. Woojin asks if he would be willing to help his friends who are also suffering from divine fever. Kim wants to know if they also received the curse from the old priest's order. SEO confirms it, saying his 4 friends have endured it since childhood. The warrior thinks about the 4 people suffering from divine fever. He wonders if they're referring to those characters, and if so, this is a perfect opportunity to make things easier. Kim agrees that he can't ignore those in need, and Woojin thanks him. The warrior asks if he can meet them before starting the treatment. SEO agrees, saying he'll arrange it with them now, so they head to the first security mansion. Woojin introduces his 4 friends. Kim thinks he was right. They were the supporting characters who aided the paladin Seo Woojin. They are the high-class children who were held hostage by the old priest's order, 2 boys and 2 women, also afflicted with divine fever. Kim says he'll make things clear right here. He asks if they were all baptized against their will. The group members confirm it and ask if it's really possible to cure it. Kim warns them that his method is painful, but they'll be able to awaken just like Woojin if they can endure it. He wants to know if they have what it takes. The 4 friends look at each other, declaring they would do anything to get rid of the divine fever. They begged for it. Kim cracks a smile and says that in that case, they would begin, unleashing his black flame. A week later, in the same mansion, the 4 were able to awaken their powers. Kim reflects that they all succeeded without any issues due to their innate talents. The quartet thanks their teacher while crying, but Kim tries to be modest. The parents of the 4 also call for the teacher, thanking him for everything he did for their children. They show him a table with gifts, saying it's a small token of their gratitude, even if it's not much. Kim thanked them, saying it wasn't necessary and that it was all due to their children's innate talent, while thinking he can profit just by targeting rich families. And it felt like he was playing some kind of paid lottery. He gets boots with extreme speed, a detection helmet, a fury axe, an Acropolis shield, and 2 nectars. The parents say they went together to choose the gifts and hope he likes them. Kim turns and expresses his sincere gratitude for the reward, and he thinks he's very lucky. Anyway, besides all that, it was time to claim his real reward, a approaching a young man. He comes closer and asks if the teacher wanted to speak with him, and Kim confirms, as he has a favor to ask the representative of the Galaxy Mall. The man says he's willing to do anything for him. Kim asks if he wants to enter the underground gold mine beneath the Hanam branch. He tries to say there's nothing under the mall, and the warrior explains that it's located between areas A1 and A2 of the 8th underground floor. The man says he doesn't know how he found out, but he can't do it, even for the teacher. Kim, in turn, guarantees he won't say a word about what he sees inside. With that, the representative falls silent. Kim asks for just one day, saying it's all he needs, and that he'll keep quiet about whatever they want to hide. Entering the building's parking garage, between area A2 and A1, Kim arrives at the spot. He smashes through a wall with Bayek Soren. The girl says she can't believe there was really a hidden space in the wall, and Kim comments that this is where she will awaken, since he went to great lengths to get here. Soren asks if they're going to train in such a secret place, and the warrior confirms, saying it will be fun. People with her type of power don't awaken normally. It's necessary to put them in life or death situations, and this place was an undiscovered dungeon, the very place where Soren will awaken in the future. She comments that the place is dark and has a strange smell that's making her anxious. A skeleton lunges toward Soren, but she dodges, throwing herself to the side, asking the warrior to help her, but then she notices a katana beside her. Kim says it's time for training, leaving the girl confused. The teacher wants her to defeat the zombie, and Soren questions what he's saying. Kim replies that she needs to fight for her own life, as it's the only way she'll awaken. Soren questions what kind of madness this is as the zombie advances. She turns quickly, slicing off the zombie's head and telling it to stay away. Kim thinks that Clumsy Cut had considerable power, and Bake Soren truly possessed a talent beyond what he had imagined. He congratulates her on a good job and a great start, but the girl shouts that he's mean for making her fight without warning, and Kim says she did well. She agrees hesitantly, while he reflects that this was expected from one of the top 3 warriors in the game. Even without awakening, she fought like a sky-shattering star-class character as soon as she entered combat. Soren asks if she has to fight alone, and her teacher confirms, telling her not to worry, but also that he won't let her leave. The girl complains that it doesn't sound very comforting at all, decapitating another zombie. Soren swings her sword. Kim asks if she's ever learned swordsmanship before, and she denies it, saying she's never trained. He asks if this is just raw talent, and annoyed, Kim thinks that he had to suffer so much to get skills like these, while she seems naturally too strong. Soren asks how far this place goes, saying it seems deep, and Kim replies that there's an exit at the other end, while thinking they'll only leave after she awakens. Something rushes toward the two of them. A zombie with a drill tries to attack Soren, but she dodges, wondering why zombies were using drills. Kim thinks these were also tricky enemies in the game and he might need to intervene, but Soren rips off the enemy's arm, saying that if it's a zombie, it should fight with its own hands. Still, it had a weapon, and she cuts the zombie down. Its body falls to the ground before the girl. Kim says it was a clean victory, and Soren explains that it feels like her body just moved automatically. The girl screams as the zombie bites her leg. Kim kicks it away, calling it a damn pest. Soren wonders what she should do, but the warrior tells her it's common sense that if you get bitten, you'll turn into a zombie. The girl begs him to take her life before she becomes a zombie. Kim repeats Miss Soren's name, saying he has a solution for that and thinks that this game already developed a cure for the virus. They sit close to each other against the wall. Soren says she was scared and thought she was going to become one of those monsters, while Kim says it's a complicated world. The girl was finding the zombies here strange, from their clothes to their equipment, and it seemed like it was artificially created, and Kim agrees with her. The Galaxy Mall was built much faster than normal, considering its size, and this was only possible due to the huge number of workers, but having a tight schedule caused many to get injured and lose their lives, but the official death toll was 0. The evil construction companies just buried them here. Later, the mall's representative heard about it, but since it would cause critical damage to their public image, he decided to hide this area along with this secret, and Kim thinks this was only possible because of how lawless this world was. Soren comments that she never imagined that, asking how he discovered this secret, and Kim tries to dodge the question, thinking it was because the old priest's order unleashed the zombies in Seoul, and the dungeon that opened that day was the forbidden area of the Galaxy Mall. He says he has a special ability, and Soren jokes that he has several. Kim reflects that this was the place where Soren awakened after being attacked by zombies, and he thought it would be the best for her awakening, but there was no sign of it yet. The girl says the victims had to suffer even after losing their lives. The least they could do is help them find eternal peace, and Kim jokes that she's found a new resolve. The girl says she feels a strange sensation that she has to keep fighting. Kim comments that's not bad at all and they should keep going. while thinking that it's starting. They continue to the back of the gold mine. Soren says it's suddenly very cold, and Kim agrees, as it's sinister here and they should be careful. Seeing an entrance to a warehouse in the back, there was a stone with something on top of it. It was a radio saying there are 3 bears at home: Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. Soren says it's a creepy fairy tale, as the radio begins to glitch, repeating about there being 3 bears in a house, hurting the pair's eardrums. An ice spike was about to hit them. Kim blocks the blow with his back to protect Soren and tells her to be careful. The girl asks if the warrior is okay, while he says he didn't expect an ambush like this. Joined Phantoms was a level 3 mutant monster. Kim says she has to get out of there because it's not something she can handle yet, and Soren tries to argue. The spirits launch more ice spikes, but Kim bats them away, joking that he doesn't want any ice cream, noticing something different above him, as the monster was preparing an incredible blast, launching it towards Kim, who takes the blow to his chest, slamming hard against the wall. Soren tries to call her friend, but the warrior tells her to run, that he'll buy them more time. The girl asks how she could just leave him here, and Kim decides that one of them has to survive. She couldn't do it, crying. Kim says the reason he was so sure of her talent was because she is the sky-shattering star. The girl questions this, saying it can't be, but Kim tells her to trust herself, because with that, she will be able to awaken, and that marked the end of her lessons. More ice spikes are launched at the pair, aiming for Sorim and Kim. She thinks about trusting herself. The spikes hit the ground, pierced by other spikes at the same time. Kim notices something different about the place. Soren was completely frozen after enduring the blows. She tells herself to leave it to him, because she will trust the warrior and herself. A golden aura envelops the girl as she tells Kim not to give up. A smile spreads across the young man's face, as the ice blocking the warrior's path shatters. This was the awakening of Bayek Soren, reaching level 1 as an SSR rank warrior. She wonders what this power is. She had truly awakened, as Kim charges forward with his sword. The girl is completely surprised by this. Then Kim says it's time to stop acting. Soren asks about acting, and he explains that a sky-shattering star trait requires a life-or-death battle, and the mental strength to prevail. The girl wants to know if he put himself in danger just so she could awaken. Kim confirms it. He did a good job, and now it was time to fight, calling her the sky-shattering star. Beck Soren. The Phantom continues its attack with spikes. Soren notes that it's really angry, and Kim tells her not to worry. They'll be fine as long as they deflect its attacks before they make contact. He hits the spikes with his sword. He jokes that it's not hard at all, but the girl was frozen. Kim asks if she's okay, thinking that even though she's awakened, she's still level 1 and can't do everything perfectly. Soren sneezes and says she was hit several times, but it didn't hurt that much. The young man says it seems that way, reflecting that everyone receives an initial trait. Hers is Indomitable, which grants strong resistance against all abnormal conditions. This makes sense for a strong character, since she got Indomitable, a tier 1 defensive trait. And since he has awakened several others, he obtained the Insight skill, which lets him see all of his opponent's traits, a seriously OP ability. Soren says she's not much help right now, but Kim tells her to relax, because this is how you train your sky-shattering star. More spikes are launched at him. Kim uses Dash right next to Soren, since the girl had acquired the skill. The young man comments that she learned Dash and thinks her growth speed during battle is incredible. She notes that her body feels light, noticing something different in front of her. The creature has thrown another giant ice boulder. Kim leaps to dodge the attack. He tells the girl to wait, that he'll cut it for her, but Soren says it's okay, using the leap skill, just like him. They both land on the ground, getting ready. Kim congratulates her on a good job. Still impressed she can use leap. Soren jokes that it felt like flying. He wonders if she'll surpass him soon, just like Seo Woojin. But Bayek wants to know what to do next. Kim tells her to use the skills she just learned to draw its attention. In the meantime, he'll use his skills to cut it down. He thinks that he's taught her everything she needs, and they have to finish this as quickly as possible. Soren says she understands. So she stomps hard on the ground, charging toward the creature while dodging its attacks. Kim notes that she's gained even more traits. Her talent is truly on another level, but it was perfect. It helped the girl a lot, and now it was time to end things quickly. The warrior prepares to strike, using flash against the monster. The final blow closes in on the creature, finally destroying it on impact. An explosion erupts in the area. Soren says that was amazing, and Kim tries to be modest, saying it was nothing. Something falls in front of them. Kim picks up a cell phone and says it's the monster's mana core. The girl asks how a cell phone could be a core, but the warrior explains it happens a lot with phantom-type monsters. There was a little girl talking about the 3 bears at home. One of the workers who died here thought more of his daughter than himself before he lost his life. His resentment possessed the phone, turning it into the mana core. Soren hopes he can rest in peace now, and Kim agrees that he will. He releases the phone, which transforms into golden energy. 2 stars form in his hand. Kim explains they're called crystals, and tells the girl to make good use of them, as they can get great equipment this way. He thinks it's an incredible reward. But an earthquake shakes the mall. Soren asks what's happening now, and Kim tells her the area is about to collapse because they defeated the boss. He asks if she's adapted to the movement traits she just learned, leaving the girl impressed. Kim says it's time to run. If she doesn't want to die, she needs to run now. So they run forward, side by side. He says he's going as fast as he can, and it'll be the end for her if she's too slow. Soren jokes that this is as fast as she can run. Kim thinks they still have a long way to go to the teleportation portal. She was about to push past her limits when she's nearly hit by a rock. Her eyes turn reddish again, and Soren says she's fine. Since she awakened after going through so much, she can't lose her life here, using the leap trait. Kim shouts that the teleportation portal is right there. He thinks that he can't help her, as she still needs to receive one more trait. The reason she'll become one of the best units in the game is because of 3 powers. The sky-shattering star allowed her to get stronger, and the indomitable trait blocked the star's side effects. And the last skill was, a rock hits the girl's shoulder. She falls to her knees, saying she won't give up no matter what, and she will survive no matter how. She pushes forward with all her strength, acquiring the runaway train skill. She gets closer as the floor breaks apart, running before the rocks fall. Kim says he can't see her anymore, wondering if she failed, but Soren gets close enough to grab her friend. She hugs him and tells him to hurry. The warrior turns completely red, and they enter the portal to get out of there. The rocks continue to fall, burying the place. She acquires the narrow escape trait, granting a second chance when she's close to death. He falls to the ground, holding Soren. The onlookers say they came from inside and are badly hurt. Kim says he knew she could do it, thinking that with the narrow escape trait, her 3 skills have now been collected. Soren calls out for Mr. Warrior, and Kim remembers the girl. He asks if she's okay, and if she can get up. The girl asks if he's okay, but Kim notes that her face is red. Soren tries to explain why, saying she wants to stay in his arms just a little longer, asking if she can hold on like this for a bit, because she needs to fix her clothes real quick. She holds them in front of her, thanking him. Kim thinks that she surprised him. The girl says it was a close call, but they made it out. Kim reflects on her smiling face. Even after awakening, she's definitely different from the game. Maybe it's because she awakened differently. Kim says they're getting out of this damned mall, and he tells the girl to take one of the stars. Soren asks if he's really giving her a crystal, since it costs at least a few billion. Kim agrees and tells her to hurry up and take it. The girl says it's too much for a gift and she doesn't know if she can accept it, but the warrior tells her not to worry and to pay him back later, thinking there's a reason he spent so many resources to awaken by Soren. The Sword of Mars was one of the top 3 in Arcane Soul. It granted rapid growth, but only Soren could use it, and it could only be learned from a memory chip. She thanks the warrior, and Kim tells her not to worry, just not to forget to pay him back. He secretly thinks that he wants to learn her technique. Kim arrives at his house, thinking that all he wants is a little rest, but Woo Jin shows up, asking him to come with him. The young man just wants the world of Arcane Soul to leave him in peace. Kim gets in the car and thanks Seo for coming all this way. The boy says he's happy to pay for his friends. The warrior accepts, thinking he'd rather he hadn't come right now. Woo Jin says they managed to arrange a meeting with the armor master, and he's so excited. Kim thinks there's no way to skip this event if it's with the armor master. In this world, good items lead to good skills, and a master artisan who could craft high-level items was extremely busy. Woo Jin says the person they're contacting this time can forge level 7 armor, and the young man is surprised. He gets excited and asks them to hurry. Arriving near a mansion, there were several men standing out front. Kim asks if he's serious, and Woo Jin jokes that it's a great house for a great artisan. The warrior asks what ideal this artisan is devoted to, but the boy is confused, wondering about the sudden question. Kim notices he doesn't know and thinks, of course he wouldn't, considering how much he suffered. But this house belongs to a devotee of the old priest's order, Jo Chul. He's a very devout believer who will be at the forefront of the order's war artisans in the future. Kim thinks that even though he refused to be baptized, he was still willing to forge armor for him. A soldier interrupts them, asking him to extend his hand for identification. He tells the boy to show his black flame, while Kim asks what the hell he's doing. He activates his magic and asks if he's satisfied. Woo Jin questions the meaning of this and tells him to let go of his hand, as they are clients with a reservation. A man in a wheelchair appears, telling them to stop. Jo Chul asks who allowed him to treat his clients like that. The paladin bows to his master, and the artisan comments that even though he refused baptism, he awakened the black flame and was quite distinct. Kim asks if this is how he treats him, and Jo Chul apologizes, calling them the light and savior, recognized by the saintess. The warrior is surprised and wonders what nonsense this is, but the artisan wants them both to come inside to discuss the type of equipment they're looking for. Kim remains silent and wary. Jo Chul presents his armor, saying that plate armor is his specialty, and since it's a request from the saintess, he can make it in any style he wants. Kim looks to the side, searching, saying he's already decided what he wants. He'll take an outfit with a bulletproof vest. Jo Chul asks if he's really going with that, and the warrior confirms, saying he loves the style. The man complains it's nonsense, as it's difficult to imbue magic into that style of armor, and they can't make something sacred that way. Kim refuses the sacred armor, saying he only needs to imbue the armor with giant and extreme traits. He thinks, judging by his reaction, I can tell what they were aiming for. The sacred armor, also known as paladin armor, provides an overwhelming amount of stats for tankers. However, it has a critical drawback. To use the armor properly, the user requires a lot of divine power. Increasing one's divine power only happens by joining a religion. They were pretending to offer something good while trying to trap him in their faith. Then he takes his hand, saying he expects the best from the artisan, Jo Chul. Kim leaves his room, commenting to Wu Jin that he didn't like the sacred armor. But one of the paladins was watching him. Jo Chul comments that he can only imbue a few characteristics into this armor. The paladin asks if his master is really going to fulfill the request. The artisan says he won't go against the saintess's orders. She said that man is the light and savior of their order, but his soldier doesn't believe it, because no matter how many times he thought about it, he would need to confirm it with his own eyes. A week later, at Chunbok's antique shop, the man speaks with the superhuman. Kim chugs 3 bottles at once, and the old man tells him not to drink the mandrake elixirs like that every time. The warrior thanks him for the drink, and Chunbok asks if everything is really okay. He confirms, thinking he's obtained the skill he needed, and thanks him for the gift. Chunbok says it was the least he could do since he saved his market. Now, business is booming, which is why there are so many people today. A gang member bows to the superhuman. Kim recognizes him, saying he's that guy from the Iron Fist gang, and it's a pleasure to see him again. The subordinate asks if he's been well, but he asks for a moment of his time, as his boss wants to see him quickly. Kim questions why. The subordinate warns that there are too many ears around and they should get moving. They drive through the night streets in their car. He mentions they've prepared a high-performance armored car for him and asks if he likes it. Kim says it's not bad at all. As they head towards Mayorim, he thinks something is wrong and wonders if the Iron Fist Gang's headquarters has always been in Mayorim, because if he remembers correctly, that place is a slum full of human trash. The subordinate says they're running out of gas and are pulling over at a gas station quickly. Kim notices something strange about the sign, recognizing the Mayorim gas station. The subordinate gets out of the car, saying, "Well, isn't this lovely?" He tells him to rest there for a bit while pulling a bottle from his pocket. Kim thinks, this is a trap. There are several sticks of dynamite in the back of the car. The warrior asks if he looks like an idiot to him, and if he knows who he's messing with. The subordinate asks what he's talking about. Kim kicks the car door open, jumping outside. He tells him to stay right there with the bombs he prepared, forever. He throws a grenade towards the car. The car explodes, and Kim escapes with a dash. He says the explosion was bigger than what a single grenade would have caused. And as expected, that guy was a traitor. He thinks, a luxurious armored car heading towards Mayorim, and finally, the gas station. There's a reason he keeps getting a sense of déjà vu. Because all these events happen in the story when Iron Fist Kim is betrayed by his men. He doesn't know why, but a traitor from the Iron Fist gang was after him. Shots are fired at Kim. The men say he's the guy from that picture, and if they capture him, they'll get $1 billion. That's how they'll make some serious cash. Kim says that obviously it wouldn't end with just bombs in the car, so the assassins keep firing at him. The young man crouches behind a car, saying there are too many of them, and this cover won't last long. As he jumps, he says he needs to get out of there first, and they probably didn't expect this. The men continue to shoot at him. Kim turns around, saying, "This sucks." He activates his mana shield. He says they aren't even superhumans, yet they can react so quickly. One of the soldiers orders them to aim for the center and take him out quickly. Firing at the shield with full force, it begins to fragment in the center. Kim wonders, what is this insane precision? He decides to retreat for now, but one of the shots hits his arm. Kim says he'll have to take this seriously. He really didn't want to use this here since he just bought it, but he throws smoke grenades at the group. The grenades begin to take effect, completely surprising the mercenaries there. They shout that it's tear gas and they can't let him escape, since they need to kill him to get the antidote. Kim asks who they think they're messing with, since they aren't even superhumans, and it was time to get out of there. Night falls on the vast city. Kim continues dashing through. He comments that he's gone far enough. Since they were a group of assassins showing precision comparable to a superhuman, there's only one thing out there that could make this possible: the battle drug. It has serious side effects, but it can momentarily boost abilities. Considering they mentioned an antidote, he's sure that must be it. And the problem is, the only person who can move that many assassins is the human hunter. He's the only one who comes to mind. A master of cowardly battles, active in Mayorim. His methods would be first, using betrayal to plant a bomb. Second, an attack by assassins under the influence of battle drugs. And third is his specialized long-range shot. A light flashes from the building next to them. A bullet speeds towards Kim. The young man dodges by moving his head. He says that if he'd been a little slower, he would have lost his life for sure. But the risk of this gamble was worth it. He now sees where the enemy was hiding. Kim spots a house on fire and leaps towards it, filled with rage, saying, "I've finally found you!" But Kim runs towards the burning house, thinking that to defeat the cowardly human hunter who fights from a distance, he has no choice but to chase him down. Advancing through the fire, his entire body is burning, but he keeps pushing forward. He needs to confirm the enemy's position, but the smoke is blocking his view. A bullet zips past him. Kim says that to face a skilled sniper. He looks up at a building with a light on top. He says that's where he is, and finding his position is the priority. The human hunter then complains, saying he can't see him anymore. Kim smiles when he hears this, and, in the assassin's sights, a bluish light rises above him. Kim needs to get closer and create an unexpected variable. The hunter questions how he managed to jump up there, but the warrior, without hesitation, draws his weapon. Annoyed, the assassin asks how he dares to challenge a sniper in direct combat. Kim activates the black flame along with several of his abilities. He charges at the assassin, who also fires at his enemy. The assassin's shot hits his shoulder. He remarks that he's definitely a sniper, since he managed to react even in this situation. But even so, Kim's shot hit the assassin's shoulder. The black flame engulfs his neck. He comments that his bullets are lethal even if they only graze, moving closer to the assassin, who was groaning in pain from the hit. Kim shouts that he's won, but his foot starts sinking into the ground. Kim asks if it's a trap spell. Meanwhile, the human hunter calls him a brat. "Don't think too much about it," he says. The warrior notes that this is bad, and he can't get out of the trap. The assassin screams he's going to fill him with holes, and Kim thinks that if he extinguishes the black flame with holy water first, he'll be dead. He didn't expect this to be a race against time. For now, he has to slow his sinking speed by reducing the magic damage. It's a brute force method, but he plants his hands beside his body because survival comes first, using his mana to try and get out. Kim uses the purification characteristic to destroy as much of the trap spell's mana as possible, noticing something a little different there. The hunter got rid of the black flame. He says he'll give him credit for resisting the trap spell, but the warrior took too long. Kim shouts about him already having extinguished the black flame. As the hunter reaches for his gun, he says victory is his, and if he takes his life, he'll be set for life, because he's going to defeat him now. But Kim was already gone. He's completely surprised, but he's met with a punch to the face. Kim says, "This is the thrill of a comeback. Thank God he managed to get this skill at the last second." He has the earth resistance characteristic, and says it worked. He tells the hunter he's a sniper and shouldn't even think about attacking at this range, but he must say who placed the request. The hunter admits defeat and says he'll tell him everything, but he wants to light a cigar. Kim lets him go, telling him to talk. The hunter takes out a lighter and lights the cigar. However, the warrior just watches with his head down, asking if it tastes good. The hunter says he likes it a lot because it tastes like sweet victory. As he turns into a mutant, he lunges towards Kim, but there was a hole in his chest. The man asks how he knew. Kim confirms that a 10,000-hour gamer would recognize a cigar that turns the user into a mutant. Falling face first to the ground, he asks what the hell that was. The warrior says it was unexpected, because the human hunter was a sly bastard who usually surrenders on the brink of defeat, but this time, he chose to fight to the end by turning into a mutant, and he must have had his reasons. Kim picks up a flash drive and says it's okay, because they're going to find out who was behind all this. He goes to the Seonsu agency. A news report announces that last night, a shootout between gangs in Mayorim and a station explosion resulted in dozens of lives lost. Choi asks how he survived all that, and Kim says that's why he's so messed up. It was dangerous. The director asks who attacked him, but the young man says it's a long story and he doesn't know where to begin. A door opens with Iron Fist Kim throwing a body inside. Choi is completely stunned, but Iron Fist apologizes for failing to watch over his subordinates. Kim says it's good that he knows. While the director complains about them breaking his door, he asks if it was Iron Fist's gang that attacked his friend, and Iron Fist Kim explains they were low-ranking subordinates, and yet, after interrogating the one responsible, he managed to get some good information. Kim asks if the guy who wanted to get him was desperate for money or something. Iron Fist says incredulously that he lost everything in illegal gambling and was drowning in debt to loan sharks, and whatever the reason, it was his fault, and he apologizes. Kim accepts it, saying that even as a boss, keeping track of every gang member isn't easy. He thinks he probably doesn't know, because if it weren't for him, Iron Fist would have been the target of betrayal. He decides he'll take responsibility for all of this. Kim pulls out the flash drive and tells him to stop, as he already has all the evidence. Choi asks if it's a flash drive. The warrior explains that the superhuman who tried to kill him had it, and asks if Choi knows how to use a computer. With a smile, the director says he has a license for that, typing quickly on his keyboard. He says the guy was a big shot for taking the lives of at least 20 superhumans. Kim says his codename was Human Hunter, and they need to check the recent request. Choi goes to the most recent one and says he received it 3 days ago. The reward was 20 billion. Both Kims shout about the high amount, and the warrior asks who would offer so much money. Choi reveals the requester was someone from the Ascendant group, Kim asks if it's someone from a big company. The director shows the person's identity, leaving Kim completely shocked, asking if it was that asshole, since it was a paladin from the house of Jo Chul who gave him a dirty look. Things were really messed up now. The director asks why this rich kid tried to kill him, and Kim says he has a suspicion and wants to see his family tree. Choi keeps typing, saying he'll find it, showing it to Kim, who thinks that, as expected, he knew what was happening. Ascendant Security was a private military company under the command of the Ascendant Group, and one of the 5 largest companies in Arcane Seoul. Lee Jae-yeol, the eldest son of Ascendant Security, was first in line for succession. However, after receiving the baptism from the old priest's order and becoming a paladin, he was pushed way back in the line of inheritance. Now, the only path left for him is to succeed as a paladin, but the Saintess was obsessed with him, calling him a light and a savior. Kim says being seen overcoming the baptism and rising to prominence must have infuriated him, enough to hire an assassin. Choi says he needs to be taught a lesson. Iron Fist comments that the opponent isn't just a company heir, but a family that owns a massive corporation, so they can't afford to make a mistake. Choi says that doesn't mean they should just stand by, and Kim agrees he's right, because he has an idea, and Choi starts flattering him. The warrior explains they have to take down a big shot, and they'll start by focusing on their expansion. An angry Woo Jin slams the table, calling him a damn bastard for trying to defeat his master. Kim tells him to calm down since he's still alive, thinking that nothing is more reliable than Seo Woo Jin, who is rich and also level 5. The boy says he won't let it slide and they should hire an assassin too. Choi says he can't imagine them paying for an assassin, and if they request one, it'll be more expensive. He tries to argue. Kim tells them both not to worry because he has an idea. He's going to officially challenge Lee Jae-yeol to a duel. Woojin says that's too dangerous. Kim notes that it can't be helped. If he leaves him alone, he'll just hire even stronger assassins to try and kill him. Woojin points out he won't fight personally, and he'll put someone else in his place. The warrior explains that this world is full of unfair advantages, and if he wins the duel, he'll receive a proper apology and compensation. And so, Iron Fist says that actually sounds like the most realistic solution right now. Kim agrees, saying that with clear proof in hand, he has enough justification to challenge him to a duel, and if a private confrontation is allowed, he would accept it. Choi mentions that he'll officially submit the duel request and that an authorized notary will also be needed. Woojin asks to leave that to him, saying his parents know a lawyer who also serves as a Supreme Court judge. And so, the warrior thanks the group. He asks why they're looking at him like that, since he has no intention of dying here. The Iron Fist questions if he's that confident in his victory, as the enemy knows his strength, and will probably call on a fighter of at least level 4. Kim says it won't be easy. He thinks that he won't be able to use his mutation in an official duel, which will make this much harder than when he faced the chairman. He states that he can already predict who will be put up against him. The Iron Fist asks if he knows who his opponent will be, and Kim confirms. He says that's why he needs time to prepare, and wants to train with Woo Jin. His ally accepts and says he'll help in any way he can. Kim thanks him and asks him to go easy, remembering he almost lost his life in their last fight, 3 days later, in an arena. Woo Jin hopes that the warrior can win, and Choi also shows his support. Kim thanks them, thinking that he trained intensely for the past 3 days and was completely exhausted, but thanks to that, he managed to finish his preparations to face his opponent, Oh Dusik, the paladin captain of the Order of the Old Father, who comments that it's been a while since his last duel. Jaeol says the captain didn't need to be there, but Dusik cuts him off, telling him to be silent, as he has no right to speak, since no paladin of the order loses an official duel when the captain is present. Kim thinks that Lee Jaeol acted all tough in front of him, but was just a sheep in front of his captain, calling him a coward. Dusik says it's a pleasure to meet the warrior, and first he wants to apologize for this unpleasant matter. Kim is surprised, thinking that he was apologizing so politely. Dusik clarifies that the incident was the fault of one individual, and that their esteemed saint has nothing to do with it. Kim asks what the order's position is, and the paladin says the saint told them that the warrior Kim would be her light and savior. The young man reflects on this as Jo Chul said the same thing, but he doesn't know what it means. Dusik proposes a condition. If he wins, Kim must join his order. Kim repeats, "Join the order?" wondering why she was so obsessed with him. Dusik says it is the will of his saint and his lord. The lawyer approaches, announcing that it is now time to begin the duel, and with all parties present, they must confirm the contract for the duel's oath. If the paladin wins, Kim will join the Order of the Old Father. However, if the warrior wins, Lee Jaeol will be forbidden from harming Kim, directly or indirectly, and will pay compensation. He asks if that is correct. Both parties accept the agreement. Kim thinks that in the world of Arcane Soul, the dual oath was a magical bond that would make one's heart explode if broken. Even in this chaotic world, no one would be crazy enough to break such an oath. He then proceeds to confirm the duel's rules, which will follow the international standard regulations established by the superhuman federations. All superpowers and personally owned weapons can be used. However, consumable items must be crafted on the spot. Dusik states that he is ready. Kim says he will make his consumables, and the lawyer states that the time limit is 10 minutes per item, creating 3 vials of potions. He thinks he's basically an alchemist when he swaps his traits like this, since these are elixirs specifically designed against paladins. The lawyer announces they are the elixir of steel body, elixir of flash, and elixir of the magic dragon. Kim states that he will consume these elixirs. Doping was essential for him when it came to PvP. The lawyer announces that now that the preparations are finished, the duel will begin. A counter in the arena showed the number 10. The opponents face each other. Dusik says it's an indescribable honor to have the opportunity for him to join their order, and suggests he change his mind and join voluntarily. Kim tells him to get lost, and so the warrior draws his hammer, saying there's no other way. But he doesn't need to worry too much, because he won't take his life, since he still has to join the order. Kim thinks that his mana is incredible and clearly on a higher level than his own. No matter how well he prepared, he won't be able to defeat him without risking his life. The counter approaches 1 and finally hits 0. Dusik charges with all his might to wound him, causing a massive explosion in the arena. Kim was unscathed even after he destroyed the arena, but he vanished in just a second. However, he dismisses that idea. He simply activated his dash trait, shouting that the warrior Kim would become a god, leaving the young man in complete disbelief. The explosion of black flame startles the crowd. Woojin says he's also strong and it could really end in a single hit. Soren watches the battle and tells them to observe. The smoke clears, and Kim has blocked the blow with his shield, asking if he was talking about becoming a god, and what kind of nonsense that was. Dusik is utterly surprised by this. Kim thinks that, as expected, he charged forward with his opening move. It was a high-tier skill used for surprise attacks, but he was fully aware of it, so there was no reason not to block it. Either way, this one-hit skill can break his third-layer shield. Dusik says that a level 3 warrior blocking his attack might make him understand the saint's insistence, but Kim tells him to explain the part about him becoming a god. The paladin explains that it's exactly as he heard. Warrior Kim is the hope of their order, and also the one who will save them from the apocalypse. Kim thinks about being the order's hope. Now that he considers it, the god they serve was lifeless. Years ago, as the story progressed, the saint performed a ritual to revive her god, and a boss battle started in the middle of Seoul. Kim says, "Don't tell me that by savior, you mean being a vessel for your god." Dusik says that's exactly it, as it is a noble sacrifice and a sacred dedication. The warrior complains that these crazy bastards want to sacrifice him, and Dusik informs him that his soul and body belong to the old father and his avatar, because he will lose the duel and join their order. Kim charges forward, telling him to stop talking shit, as the captain blocks with his shield, stumbling back a little, thinking that it was a lot of power. Kim reflects that it was because he changed all his traits to those of an offensive warrior. He charges again, striking the man's shield, thinking he'll attack with his other warrior skills to harass him. Dusik says the young man's swordsmanship is truly challenging. Kim confirms, because now that he was focused on his defense, he was wide open. He draws an axe as he switches his skills. Dusik tries to block with his hammer, but the axe pierces his armor. He says, "This is actually fun." Kim reflects that it's working, and his 3 days of preparation were not in vain. Because the reason he trained with Seo Woo-jin was not only to gain the necessary skills for this duel, but to learn how to instinctively change his skills in half a second. He will fight superhumans of a higher level than him, using defensive skills when he needs to defend. He retreats as his shield shatters. Kim charges again with his sword, saying he uses offensive warrior skills when he needs a surprise attack, and other warrior skills when he needs multiple hits, striking the shield simultaneously. He announces he's going in, using the berserker skill to press his advantage. For a level 3 to fight a level 4, changing his powers is his only option. Dusik felt like he was fighting 4 different warriors, and he wants to know how that's possible. His hammer is knocked away by Kim's attacks. The paladins wonder how this is possible, saying it's impossible. Dusik is in complete disbelief at this moment, staring at his wound, speechless. Kim announces that he has won this duel and has no intention of becoming a sacrifice for his order. Dusik admits it and says he can't go easy on him now, but he no longer cared about a sacrifice or anything like that, because he was going to take his life. He had to be ready. He hurled the shield at Kim's defense, and the young man cried out from the frontal assault. He was thrown back by the impact. He thought his power had simply grown, and that his enemy had been going easy on him until now. Dusik advanced again, asking how he could speak ill of his order. He slammed the young man against the wall once more. He demanded an apology, saying he would accept his surrender if he did. Kim refused, getting to his feet. There was no way for him to win unless he took his life. He lunged at the paladin with his sword, and they traded blows in a wild, insane frenzy. He landed a shield bash on Kim's shoulder. A smirk appeared on Kim's face as he used his sword to slash the paladin's abdomen. Still enraged, the paladin kicked him, sending Kim flying into the wall. Dusik panted slightly while Kim writhed in pain. The paladin then shouted that it was time to end this useless battle. He raised his shield and called upon the old father, summoning an immense tsunami into the arena. Kim realized this was the shield's final ability, the tsunami of darkness, and now that he saw it with his own eyes, it was a pure disaster. He had a 100% chance of losing if he got hit. There was no way to dodge it. To win, he had to break through the immense tsunami. Kim was afraid, but he had to believe in the skills he had built as Warrior Kim, the swordsmanship that could cleave mountains, something he never strayed from in his training, the sword style he learned from Seo Woo-jin, the Einherjar cultivation technique he spent so much time practicing, the mana heart that had been with him for a long time, and finally, the lunge he gained when he was desperate, the last moment that can cut through anything in the universe, the flash. Kim declared he would use all his skills. It was time to put all his efforts into this. He advanced with his sword, ready to thrust. Last, but not least, the young man pierced through the tsunami second by second. Kim thought that he just had to trust himself. What was that? Jaeol asked. Choi also wanted to know what was happening. Kim stopped after the sword strike. He spat blood, in absolute pain. Dusik said it was a truly magnificent duel. He called him a warrior, a blade piercing through his back. He fell to the ground, utterly defeated. The lawyer raised the young man's hand and declared him the winner. His friends ran towards him. Kim thought that he did it. He had defeated a high-level superhuman without using a mutant ability. Woojin hugged his master, telling him he was truly the best. Soren joked it was completely inhuman. Choi said he knew his master would win, and Iron Fist was in disbelief over his victory. Jaeol shouted insults at Kim. He charged at him with a hammer, but Woojin appeared to defend him, causing an explosion that forced the paladin to retreat. Jaeol slammed his back into his colleagues. Woojin told that piece of trash to know his place. He was too bold to attack his teacher, asking if he really wanted to die. The lawyer appeared before him and said that if he acted recklessly, his heart would explode. Jaeol knelt, saying that because of Warrior Kim, his captain was now 6 feet under. The paladins shouted that they needed vengeance, and that the old father's order would not forget this. Kim asked what he was talking about, being the one who took Dusik's life. Jaeol confirmed it, saying he saw it with his own eyes. The warrior told him to stop spouting nonsense, because the one who defeated Dusik was none other than himself. Even as an enemy, Dusik was an excellent example of a warrior. He didn't want a life to be lost in an open duel because of his enemy's poor assassination plot, born purely from an inferiority complex. And in memory of Dusik's honor, he accepted the duel and kept his promise. Jaeol filled with rage, calling out for his captain. The paladins advised their lord that they should leave. Kim thought that even if the old father's order wouldn't give up on revenge, it was still a fair outcome. At the Seonsu agency, during the day, Choi remarked that he was right. He had officially hired the superhuman warrior Kim, who had defeated the captain of the old father's order. He understood his client had requests. He apologized, saying he would call him back soon. Kim said he was worried Jo Chul wouldn't be able to get the armor, but he did it just as requested, with the giant and extreme skills. Choi praised him. He asked why he didn't take a look, as it was a gift from him. Kim opened the box and was impressed. He wondered what the new outfit was like, and Choi explained it was a luxurious training suit with automatic cleaning and mana regeneration. The warrior recognized the director's taste and thanked him, while his boss began to flatter him, and he asked if he could make a request to the superhuman. He thanked the young man because his business was now booming thanks to their short work history. People had been doubting their relationship. Kim said they had good reason to. He asked if the director had any decent work for him, and Choi agreed, saying he had prepared something perfect. The Sun Magic Tower wanted to study his black flame for research purposes. Kim thought about it. The Sun Magic Tower was one of the 4 great magic towers of Seoul, and if he remembered correctly, it was where you acquired fire-related magics. Choi said they would gift the young man a membership, and Kim said he would accept. He thought that the character in the Sun Magic Tower was exactly where he knew the rewards would come from. He went to the designated location. Kim thought it was a place where science and magic mixed, creating an incredible scene. A scientist asked if he was the superhuman warrior Kim. He introduced himself as Park Hyungju, a researcher, and wanted to know if he was there for the study. Kim confirmed, thinking he looked older but was still quite young. Hyungju said he wouldn't waste his time, and that they should go this way. They went to a basic measurement test first. Kim thought the machine looked familiar as the mage asked him to step inside. Hyungju told him to stand still inside. As the door closed, the ultra-precision measurement test. Kim realized this was the machine used to reveal everything everything about a character to the player, and it was about to reveal all his skill secrets. Kim started banging on the glass, asking what the hell this was and demanding they stop the machine because he wasn't ready. The doctor asked him to stay put, as it was a necessary process, and it was all in the contract. Meanwhile, Kim prepared to punch the glass. It shattered right in front of the doctor. Hyungju questioned what this was all about. Kim explained that the contract he signed only required him to show his black flame, which was why he cooperated. Someone appeared, asking who he thought he was to do this to a guest. Then he slapped Hyungju across the face. Yoo Myung-sok asked how that idiot dared to ruin his project again. Hyungju said it was a misunderstanding, but his boss rejected that, saying he wanted to sell all the information on the warrior who owned the black flame ability. He had a camera recording it. The researcher apologized, saying he was momentarily blinded by greed. Myung-sok told him to get out, that he was exiled from the team now. Kim wondered what was going on. Giving a slight cough, the scientist turned and apologized to Warrior Kim, introducing himself as the chief researcher. He looked to be in a bad mood. Kim said that might be, but it wasn't his fault, and he wanted to know what would happen to him. Myung-sok explained that the idiot had sold confidential information out of greed. If it weren't for Elder Joe, he would have been expelled long ago. Kim said he came to fulfill the director's request and almost had his personal information extracted. Yoo Myung-sok apologized, saying he would increase his membership level. The warrior asked about the benefits. The chief told him he could use commercial potions and train his own. Kim thought the magic tower only had potions for mages. Saying it didn't sound bad, the director decided they would rest a bit before the research. Before that, they would take a tour of the magic tower. Kim walked into a room filled with several yellowish orbs. He thought he was almost tricked, as expected of Arcane Soul, but it all worked out, as he now had a great chance of getting incredible skills from the training. A radio announced the start of beginner electric magic training. The orbs began to emanate incredible electricity, firing a blast at Warrior Kim. It hits the young man, who lets out a small groan. He thinks about how the pain sears his bones, but if he can just hold on a little longer with his traits, it'll be perfect. Acquiring the skill, electricity resistance. Kim thinks it's great. He's finally obtained the last of the 6 attribute resistances. He tells the system to shut it down now, before he gets fried alive. Red lights fill the area, announcing the system has switched to manual mode, and the electricity's intensity has been adjusted. Kim yells that he's already finished the training and asks who's outside. He sees that Hyungju is controlling the system. Hyungju thinks the warrior messed with the wrong person. He cranks the electrical discharge up to maximum voltage. An immense blast shoots toward Kim. The warrior is in total disbelief. Meanwhile, Hyungju watches, hoping Warrior Kim dies. Electricity engulfs Kim's body, and Hyungju says that's what the kid gets for messing with him. However, the man notices something strange. Unbelievably, the young man was still standing while being electrocuted. Looking at his skills, Kim thinks there was a reason he went to the training room in his free time. His divine resistance skill, obtained by resisting the baptism. Also, his fire resistance, which he got while boiling himself in the mana bath. His shadow resistance, obtained after fighting the necromancer Karen, as well as his cold resistance, gained in the fierce blizzard summoned by ghosts, and his earth resistance, obtained while trying to escape a human hunter's magic trap, and finally, his electricity resistance, which he just got from this training. With all these skills combined, a shocking amount of pain surges through Kim. His heart beats faster than normal, until it all finally ends, and he acquires the new skill called magic resistance. The young man thinks that was exciting. Meanwhile, in the booth, a nervous Hyungju wonders if the kid is even human and activates another module. As magic orbs descend, the system enters emergency mode, warning that the program is out of control. Hearing this, Kim thinks it sounds dangerous, so he dodges all the attacks with his gift of perception. In turn, he ends up receiving a new trait called Succession. Back in the control room, a panicked Hyungju mashes all the buttons, trying to finish the kid off. Just then, the professor arrives, shoves the young man away, calling him crazy and asking what he thinks he's doing. The old man turns and orders them to shut everything down. With that, the training program resets, and the cannons stop. Grabbing Hyungju by the shirt, he demands to know how he dared to harm Warrior Kim. The terrified young man tries to explain himself when someone else arrives. Seeing it's Kim, the doctor asks if the boy is all right. Stretching, our protagonist says he just took a little shock, but that's all. This leaves everyone in the room speechless. A short time later, we see Hyungju being expelled as he begs to stay. Watching the scene, Kim asks what will happen to the guy, and the doctor explains that he'll be marked and become unable to learn magic. Kim comments that in that case, the man's life as a mage is over, and the old man says it's the standard punishment for what happened. Apologizing for the incident, the man surprises Kim with a gift. When he sees what it is, the young man is thrilled to find a miracle potion that can fully restore his health. Hiding his enthusiasm, he says thanks and mentions it's like a second life. The man gets nervous, and Kim, noticing this, thinks he can get something more out of him. Closing the box, the boy comments that this seems to be enough, and the doctor asks if there is anything more he could do for him. Then Kim reveals that for a while now, he's wanted to experience the 4 spells of the 4 magic towers. This shocks the old man, who asks if he means the solar flare. Kim confirms, but the doctor says it's impossible, since not even a level 3 superhuman could withstand it. However, the boy insists he can take it for 15 seconds, and the old man tries to explain that not even a level 5 could manage that feat. The young man, in turn, says that he's different as he raises his finger, imbued with a dark energy. Noticing they are black flames, the doctor comments it's an interesting approach, but says it's still dangerous. As he dispels the flames, the young man declares, "We'll see about that." Then we see a cannon tilting into position. Right below it stood the young man, thinking about how terrifying it was to consider what was about to happen. But for him, it was inevitable, considering there were only 3 ways to obtain the solar flare. The first was to enter the magic tower as a disciple of the Tower Master. The second was to defeat the Tower Master in a one-on-one duel, but neither was possible for someone like him. From the control room, the doctor announces he's starting. As he nods, Kim thinks that there was, however, a third way. Looking at a crowd, he figured he could use the hidden quest unlocked once he built up favorability with the Master, who, in turn, was in the middle of the crowd. The eruption begins with plasma flowing and gathering into a sphere. Kim thinks that, in other words, he needed to impress the Master by proving his usefulness. A ball of fire heads toward our protagonist. Engulfed in fire, the young man just thinks that he has to withstand this, because there was a trait he needed to obtain through his magic armor. From above, people wondered how a level 3 could endure that. Surrounded by flames, Kim screamed, thinking that even though he had prepared a lot, it still hurt so much. The timer finally hits 15 seconds, and the doctor orders them to abort the solar flare. With that, the cannon ceases fire. Exhausted, the young man thought that had been the longest 15 seconds of his life. Smiling, the Tower Master comments that Kim is a very interesting person while sipping a cup of tea. The man said the boy was fascinating, using black flames to withstand the solar flare, and he comments that Kim would be a great help for his long-awaited project. Without wasting time, our boy says it's an honor for him. The Master says he likes the young man's style and reveals he has a request, which intrigues Kim. Just then, someone arrives, asking if the Master had called for him. The man tells the boy to say hi to Warrior Kim, and the boy says it's a pleasure, introducing himself as Magic Kim. Looking a bit melancholic, the young man apologizes for being late. Seated, the Master explained that this was his grandson, who had enormous potential but was stuck at level 1, which Kim finds strange. Looking frightened, the boy apologizes for being a disgrace to the tower, and Kim says that's not what he meant. The Tower Master asks what our protagonist thinks, saying he heard he also cured Director Seo's son, and he asks if by any chance Kim might have an idea of how to awaken the boy. The warrior thinks for a moment, making the Master and his grandson tense. With a smile on his face, he answers yes. In that case, the Tower Master declares that if he succeeds, he'll give him anything he desires. Our sly protagonist asks if he's sure about that, while thinking that this marks the beginning of the secret quest. A while later, a surprised Tower Master asks the young man to repeat his request, so Kim says he wants the solar flare. Hearing this, the man says he can do it, since the tower's future depends on him, but he isn't sure if Kim could actually use it. Kim says that's why they should use an instant learning chip, and the man says that if he solves the problem, there will be no obstacles. Apologizing for interrupting, the man's grandson asks how Kim plans to train him, and the young man says they'll start with the root of the problem. With disdain, the Tower Master reveals the problem is the boy's mathematical knowledge, so his grandson starts to apologize. In his thoughts, Kim says he knows the boy's problem all too well. Overcome with guilt, the boy kept apologizing, so Kim suggests they try a type of magic that doesn't require mathematical calculations. The Master then asks what he means by that. Our protagonist says he's referring to the use of spirits, commenting that the boy could become a flame sorcerer. At that moment, the man stands up, saying that has nothing to do with mages, and Kim asks if he'd prefer the boy to stay as he is, or if he'd rather have him train as a sorcerer, so he can unlock his potential. The Tower Master turns to his grandson for a moment. He then sits down, asking Kim to explain the details. Kim explains that since the boy had trouble with casting, he should just provide the mana and leave the rest to the spirit. The man asks how the boy could do that, since he wasn't even familiar with the spirit. With a serious expression, Kim explains he never said to make a contract. Just as he said, the boy would simply use them. He would just write a spell on the mana circle. That way, the user handles the mana manipulation, and the circle handles the spell itself. The man finally understands that the boy was telling them to capture a spirit to use in the circle, and Kim confirms it. The Tower Master says he never expected a warrior like him to think of something so incredible. Kim thinks to himself that of course it was incredible, since they were the ones who came up with it in the future. However, the Master says that with the spirit realm closed, they couldn't summon one. Our boy says they could use spirit animals instead. The man asks if he means animals like phoenixes and wonders how they could find such creatures. Our protagonist says he shouldn't worry because he knew a way. A while later, the Tower Master and his grandson were stunned to find themselves in a valley full of phoenixes. The old man asks how this was possible, since even the highest level individuals struggled to find them. Kim reveals he found them by chance. Hearing this, the Master comments that he's lucky. Kim approaches and asks about what he had promised. He replies that he'll make sure to give him solar flare, and Kim celebrates. The man asks if the boy really planned to use the flare as a warrior. Summoning black flames to his fingertips, he replies that he planned to enhance it and create its polarization. Hearing this, the Master bursts out laughing. He says it's not easy, and that even they had been trying for a long time. The young man comments that his method might be better, so the man proposes they compare for 2 years to decide which is superior. Kim gets excited and asks what's at stake. The Master says he'll grant any wish. However, he says that if he wins, the boy must join his tower's security team. Our protagonist says he likes the sound of that, thinking it's a great opportunity to benefit from the magic tower. After finishing their conversation, they decide it's time to test it out and head towards the mountain. Sometime later, Kim was waiting in a white room. Just then, the doctor arrives, praising the boy for paving the way for sorcery in the tower. Kim agrees, but points out that everything depends on the operation's success. The man changes the subject and mentions the expelled mage. The boy asks if he's talking about the loser from before. The doctor then reveals that the mage stole money from the group, surprising the boy. At this point, we are shown the Kumo Group, a large conglomerate known for its highly aggressive business expansion. After this, the old man reveals that, strangely, they had only stolen information about Kim and probably wanted to recruit him. Just hearing this, our protagonist feels a chill and says he wouldn't want that to happen. Just then, the Tower Master opens the door, saying everything was a great success. The man pats the boy on the back, saying that thanks to him, his grandson was now a superhuman. Coming out of the room, the man's grandson appears, radiating flames from his body. Kim is surprised to see he had already started at level 3 and wonders if this was the power of genetics. Creating an orb, the young man comments on how strange it was to be able to use magic so easily. Our protagonist advises the boy to drink some fire attribute elixirs to gain more mana, and the boy thanks him for the tip. At that moment, the Tower Master waves Kim over to receive his reward. The excited boy runs over, expecting a box of jewels. However, he's met with a kind of lunchbox and asks the man what it is. The man just tells him to open it. Upon opening the bag, the boy sees stacks of money, and the man explains he has prepared an allowance for him. Hugging the bag, he says he loves the Tower Master. At the Seonsu Task Force, Director Choi, seeing that Kim had earned 5 billion, says it's incredible. Our protagonist says he should get used to his greatness. The young man comments that he thinks it's time to drink the nectar, and the man asks if it isn't too soon. So Kim asks if he couldn't refine the nectar. After thinking for a moment, the man opens a cabinet full of utensils, saying the boy could count on him. Showing Kim the tablet, the man says he'll need ingredients, and the boy comments that he's confused about which ones to choose. Looking at the ingredients, he notices he already has most of them. Kim chooses the heart to obtain the audacity trait, leaving Director Choi intrigued by his bold choice. Choi questions the choice of the horned tiger, explaining that the species is endangered and the ingredient is extremely hard to get. The boy is surprised to discover this fact about his chosen item. A while later, we see a car in the middle of a forest. Inside is Kim, who hums to himself, thinking that if that's the case, he'll have to get the item himself, but there was a problem. Faced with a vast area, he didn't know how to find the rare horned tiger in such an expanse. Seeing no other way, he opens a mysterious can to attract the monster, indicating he'll use bait to make his search in the vast area easier. The young man sniffs the ingredient with all his might, and falls to the ground coughing as he receives the dog's nose trait. He lamented the smell of the bait, but thanks to his new trait, he could now track anything by scent. Following the trail, Kim finds a carcass and senses a predator nearby from the strong smell of blood, indicating he's on the right track. The boy hears a car engine and turns around, thinking it's here. Kim watches as a car heads straight for a tiger. The men in the car were laughing as they shot at the creature. Realizing he has competition, he thinks that at this rate, he'll end up losing his prey. As he ran, the young man noticed it wasn't a normal horned tiger, but the Mountain King, the most famous mystical creature of the Cholwan Plain, possessing an impressive 6 traits in total. As the beast charged at him, Kim knew he'd be a goner if he let his guard down. The monster rushes past him, landing a glancing blow. He wonders how he was hit, even with his evasion skill active. Watching the beast, the young man thinks his chances are slim and realizes he needs to end this in a single blow. Kim leaps over the horned tiger, observing it from above, and with the monster in his sights, he activates his skill. However, even as he fires, the creature pulls back, causing the bullet to graze it. The young man gets frustrated by how easily the beast dodges. Positioning himself in front of the tiger, he says it's not over yet, because as a warrior, he was very confident in his shooting skills. Just then, the tiger is covered in Kim's black flames, but it seems to have no effect. Kim gets frustrated upon realizing this. The furious beast charges towards him. In turn, the young man dodged with ease. The warrior wonders how the creature keeps fighting even after being hit by his flames. In that case, he decides to engage in close quarters combat. The beast charges at the young man again. He then realizes that the Mountain King's strongest ability is its charge, as it uses its weight to its advantage, and that, compared to its reputation, the strategy to overcome it was ridiculously simple. After all, he just needed to use that force against the tiger. The monster looks at the young man, who in turn asks if it's surprised and says the monster already knew he wouldn't dodge that attack. In the next moment, we only see Kim making a vertical slash on the creature, making strawberry juice gush out. In the city, an excited crowd was observing the creature's body. With them was our protagonist, boasting about having killed the Mountain King. While looking out his window, Kim thinks to himself that he had taken care of everything because he was worried, but ended up gaining a trait in the process. Since he only needed the heart, he asks if anyone is interested in the creature's body. At that moment, several people start making bids in the 2 billion range. However, a woman in the crowd raises her hand, making a bid of 5 billion. As she made the payment, people left the area. Frustrated, the girl asks if he hunted the king alone, which Kim confirms, saying he got lucky. She remarks there's no such thing as luck in hunting, that it's all about skill. After saying this, she hands him a card, asking him to call when he can. As they say their goodbyes, Kim thinks the girl looks familiar, but figures she's just some rich side character. Seeing the 5 billion in his account, he thinks to himself that he's rich. 2 days later, the young man is in a room holding a vial. Shaking it, he notices the nectar seems to have been well processed, judging by its color. He remembers director Choi saying there would be no side effects thanks to the heart, and decides to trust him. Kim sighs, admitting he's still a bit nervous. So he decides to configure his traits as a precaution. With that, he tips back the vial, drinking all the nectar. Afterward, his body becomes extremely hot. The system announces that his body is evolving. Resisting the pain, Kim realizes the effect is working. He advances to level 4 and feels as if even his soul is leveling up. The young man receives a new trait called Audacity and notes that, just as promised, the nectar was successfully processed. In his thoughts, he reveals there was another reason he went to hunt the monster after selling the items himself, because of the traits he had received through battles. He wonders what would happen if he obtained the traits in his equipment with that diamond. At that moment, he's notified that he has received the resistant and giant skills. Looking at his skill window, he thinks the prep work is done, and it's time to take the final step. Activating his giant skill, his muscles begin to grow. The system warns of damage to his muscle fibers, and his bone structure starts to adjust. The traits are resonating. They all merge, forming a single trait called Giant Strength. Transformed into a giant, he thinks that this is the trait of a max-level warrior. Looking at himself in the mirror, he remarks that he's the size of a mutant. Deciding to test his strength, he throws a punch into the air. The shockwave from the punch shatters the mirror. The young man is surprised by such power. However, he notices there are also side effects. He realizes that to use this trait, he'll need the diamond body, or the trait called Invincibility. Kim thinks he could learn them through his equipment, just as he did before. But there's a problem, considering he has spent all his diamonds. Leaving the place happy, he skips along, thinking he knows exactly where to get them. But when he arrives, he discovers there are no more diamonds in stock, which leaves him frustrated. The seller mentioned they would only restock next month, which is too late for our protagonist. Whispering, the man asks if Kim would like to go with him to mine some diamonds. He says the route can't be leaked, however, and asks if the young man is interested. Our protagonist readily agrees. In the heavy city traffic, the seller asks if the boy is aware that he needs to take risks to get the diamonds, which Kim confirms. The man then says he should take a look first, and if he doesn't want to, he can back out. This leaves Kim confused about all the warnings. Our protagonist notices they are arriving in Buchan. With that, he thinks he has an idea of where they're going, the place where superhumans fought for their lives. In an arena, the crowd roared. 2 men faced each other in the center of the ring. The place was called the Colosseum. Upon arriving, Kim comments that the place is huge. The old man then asks if he already knew about the Colosseum, and Kim reveals he's heard rumors. Suspicious, our protagonist asks if he is affiliated with this place, which the old man confirms with a laugh. At this moment, we discover that the man is actually Kim Chunbok, one of the founders of the Shinwon market. However, Chunbok makes it clear he didn't bring him there to participate, and Kim questions if he hadn't brought him there as part of the plan. The man confirms, saying that since nothing is easy in this world, this is the fastest way for him to get his coveted diamond. The rule was simple. The winner takes the loser's diamond, who in turn must break their own circle to create a new one. Kim thinks this is basically like completely resetting your experience points. The young man replies that it sounds very dangerous, and the merchant comments that if he doesn't want to, they can just go back. The protagonist refuses the offer to leave and excitedly